blueprint will be open, and Arthas will be waiting. Thousands of stores will open at midnight on the 13th so that you can get your copy and start leveling right away. In addition, we will be sending out developers to a few locations around the world, including Anaheim and New York, to meet players and sign boxes. We'll have more information on that in the coming weeks. The Wrath of the Lich King beta test is going well. We're getting great feedback, and we're continuing to polish the expansion in preparation for launch. Ago, at the Games Convention in Leipzig, Germany, we unveiled the intro cinematic. Most of you have seen it, but you probably haven't seen it up on a big screen yet. I don't know how big your screen is at home, but it's probably not as big as these screens. So let's take a look.
My son, the day you were born, the very forests of Lordaeron whispered the name Arthas. Child, I watched with pride as you grew into a weapon of righteousness. Remember, our line has always ruled with wisdom and strength. And I know you will show restraint when exercising your great power. Truest victory, my son, is stirring the hearts of your people. I tell you this, for when my days have come to an end, you shall be king.
Holy crap, look at all the people. Hello everyone. Welcome to Blizzcon. Wow. It is really humbling to have so many people show up for an event like this. The Blizzard community is so important to us, our games wouldn't be what they are, wouldn't be possible without all of you. We really appreciate it, and an event like this wouldn't be possible either. So really glad you guys are here this weekend. So we finished Burning Crusade earlier this year, and the World of Warcraft development team's been hard at work on a lot of cool stuff. And some of the stuff they've been working on are live content updates. We've got some great features inbound for the live content updates. One of the ones we're most excited about is integrated voice chat. Now I know for some of you this may end up being a disappointing feature, because what you're going to discover is that that hot night elf chick in the game is actually a dude on the other end of the microphone. But we've been experimenting with the feature at the office. It's really seamlessly integrated. It's slick. It's cool. You guys are going to love it. Another feature we're working on is guild banks. Guild banks are public storage for your guild. You'll be able to store items in gold. Guildmaster will be able to set permissions for the different ranks within the guild. The Guildmaster is going to know who's made deposits to the guild bank. But more importantly, the Guildmaster is going to know who made withdrawals. So no ninja looting your guild bank. We've been hard at work on a new 10-man raid instance. It's called Zulaman. It's located in Ghostlands. It's inhabited by Zuljin and his Armani tribe of forest trolls. Not to be confused with the Armani tribe. They're not that stylish. See, Mike, I told you they wouldn't get that one. Anyway, these trolls are in constant conflict with the Blood Elves in that region, and they've been lying low, but they're ready to come forth and kick some Blood Elf ass, as well as any other challengers that are willing to take them on. How many of you play orcs? See? Yeah, we've got some exciting changes in store for you guys. We're going to triple the size of your shoulder pads. So, live content updates are pretty cool. Live content updates are cool, but the dev team's been working on something much more special than that. Now, I know there's always rumors on the internet. Who's been reading rumors on the internet and thinks they know what I'm about to talk about? Okay, keep your hands up. Your accounts are all banned. Internet rumors. For the rest of you, I'm very pleased to tell you that the dev team's been hard at work on the second expansion for World of Warcraft, Wrath of the Lich King. Cool stuff. It's going to unveil the continent of Northrend in Azeroth. You guys may be familiar with Northrend from Warcraft 3. You may also be familiar with the very infamous inhabitant of Northrend, Arthas. Arthas is merged with this Spear of Ner'zhul, and he's the new Lich King. He commands the undead armies of the Scourge. And while the Alliance and Horde forces have had their energies focused on Outland, Arthas has set events in motion that could threaten all life on Azeroth. It's a good storyline, it's an exciting storyline, and the best part about it is that as soon as you set foot in Northrend, you're going to be immediately exposed to the storyline, and you're going to be interacting with Arthas in one form or another throughout your adventures in Northrend. It's going to be really cool. Now, Arthas is no chump. You won't be able to defeat him at level 70, so we're raising the level cap to 80. Now, with a raised level cap, we'll have to introduce exciting new abilities and really cool new talents. Those will be cool for all the classes. You won't just be using those in PvE, though. We've got some great PvP plans, too. We're going to be including new arenas, new battlegrounds, siege weapons. and buildings that can be destroyed with those siege weapons. We've got plans for a new profession. It's called Inscription. An inscriber will be able to permanently enhance players' spells and abilities. It's going to be really cool. We've got some new plans for character customization with hairstyles and dances and cool stuff like that. Northrend's going to be made up of several new zones that you'll be able to explore. We've got plans for 5-man dungeons, 10-man raids, right on, 25-man raids. We've got plans for hundreds of new quests, monsters, and items. That stuff's all good. But even more exciting, for the first time in the history of World of Warcraft, we're introducing the Death Knight hero class. Now, candidly, words can't do justice to all the cool stuff that we've got planned for the expansion, so we put together a short video for you guys to check out.
It's begun. Young heroes, I was once like you. You have come to this place seeking to bring judgment upon the damned. You will venture deep into forgotten lands. You will see wonders beyond imagining. But be warned. The land itself will rise up against you. Long-forgotten terrors will smother your courage. You will sacrifice everything as the final darkness falls. In the end, all that awaits you is death. Only then will you understand. You've been following in my footsteps all along. So come then, you heroes. Come in all your power and glory. For in the final hour, all must serve the one true King.
Hello, Blizzcon attendees and everybody watching the Blizzcon pay-per-view on Direct TV. And welcome to the World of Warcraft
want to say thanks to everyone again for coming out to Blizzcon. So, we're going to talk to you guys a little bit about the dungeons and raids that we've got lined up for you for Wrath of the Lich King. So, my name is Corey Stockman, and I'm the lead level designer.
Oh, my name's Scott Chris, I'm the lead encounter designer.
I'm Travis Day, I do organization. And this is Lee Sparks, he's our design producer. He's going to be running us through the dungeons today. So let's get started. So what we're going to first off, we're going to start talking about our actual 5-man dungeons. We're going to start here with the Halls of Lightning. Halls of Lightning is a level 80 dungeon that's located in the Storm Peaks, one of our in-game zones. And there's a lot to talk about with this dungeon. It fits in really close with our Titan lore. It's one of the things that we thought was so important to do is to make sure that the dungeons tie in really close with the lore that we're looking to get out of the game. So we want to make sure that the things we're doing in the dungeons actually make sense and follow what's happening in the quest lines. That's something that we think is really key. Not only are you getting in there to get loot and to complete quests and to possibly getting heroic badges, we want to be developing the story and pushing things forward as we go. So we want to make sure that those things are happening the whole time. Now what's cool about Halls of Lightning is that it's a Titan dungeon. Titans are something that we've talked about for a long time, and I think most everyone knows at least the general theory that Titans crafted Azeroth and all the planets and knows the basic story of them. But there's a lot of history there that we've never really had a chance to get into. And so the main thing we're trying to get across here is this feeling of epicness. We want to create a dungeon that kind of has a feeling like nothing you've ever felt before. It's huge in scale. The creatures that you're fighting here feel epic also, just as in not only that they're huge, but that they've got unique abilities and that they all feel a little bit different and they feel like they match what we're talking about. But we can't necessarily let you fight Titans right off the bat. I think we would be the size of their toe, most likely, if we were going to fight a Titan. So we run into some things there. So we've come up with a lot of new creatures that really fit and that really help kind of explain what's going on here. As we go through the dungeon, something we've done historically when we've had these dungeon and raid talks at Blizzcon is we've shown layout maps of what the dungeons look like and how we create them in 2D before. This time we decided to do something a little different. We're actually going to run you guys through the dungeon in real time on the beta servers. That's the reaction we were hoping for, so that's good. So the thing that's really neat about this, where we're able to kind of take these dungeons in a new direction, is that we can create fights that feel more unique for each boss because we've got a lot more story to go with. Whereas we don't really have necessarily 3 wings that we have to fill. We've got to have 3 bosses for each wing, and this is yes, that might be a standard of something that we want to goal. We know we want 3 bosses, or we know we want it to feel like this, but we want every instance to feel unique. And I think that's something we're going to keep hitting on. We want it to stand out because we definitely do shorter instances now that we've done it. We think the players like that, a little bit of a shorter experience, but still have it feel epic. And I think that's what you guys are going to see here. So let's go ahead and cut to the in-game Halls of Lightning. So here you can see the intro. You can kind of get a feel for this place. It really feels huge. If you look over the ledge there, you can see down there's tons of Titan statues down there that were used for different things, and we're kind of going to explain a lot of this in the quests that you're doing throughout the dungeons. As you're leveling up these Storm Peaks, you're going to kind of find out what the actual purpose of the dungeon is. But I think one thing we're doing, we're trying to build the dungeons where they feel huge, they're large, but your gameplay space isn't necessarily that big. Because I think people like to feel like they're in a big space and they've got a lot to do, but you don't necessarily want to feel like you have to get on your mount in the dungeon because it's so large. So we're trying to give that feeling through the art, but also make sure that the gameplay space actually fits what we're doing here. So that's one of our first bosses in here is actually a roamer that walks around on those platforms, so you can kind of choose where you want to fight him, how exactly you want to interact. something we're always trying to do in the dungeons is to keep a little bit of choice. Like, granted, sometimes we do dungeons that are completely non-linear, and you can choose anywhere you want to go, fight bosses in different orders. Here in Halls of Lightning, it definitely has a direction to it, but there's some small things you can do along the way. Helps really develop the story if we're moving from one point to the next. Please take a look up here at one of our next areas. This is Volcon. He's one of the second bosses that you can fight in here. And you can kind of get a sense for this. We're trying to kind of create a sense of space so that when you come into the dungeon, you might be foreshadowed by a couple of the bosses, so you notice how you can see him from down below. And I think that really helps, like, wow, what is that guy? How do I get up to him? How do I fight him? We're trying to kind of, you know, not necessarily just show you what's there, but give you an impression of, man, that guy looks really scary. Do we want to get up there? Do we want to fight that guy? And I think it creates a little bit of suspense in the dungeon, helps liven things up. Cheat through that door, nice. So here, now in this room we've got these really, really amazing statues. Now they're basically constellations that have formed into statues. Now they're here obviously because they look great from an artistic standpoint, but they also kind of fit with the concept of the Titans and what they're doing. Basically the Titans crafted the entire world, and so constellations and things like this actually have completely different meanings. So this is just a story element, but it just really helps break up the style of the dungeon. So obviously you're seeing a lot of stone, pillars and stuff, but we want to make sure that we've got breakups so you can know, oh, what section am I at in the dungeon? Oh, this was the place with those crazy constellation statues, you know. So you can get to know a sense of each of the dungeons have different sections. Here's our third boss here. This is an air elemental. Custom. You can also tell that we built a ton of custom models here for Wrath of the Lich King. It's one thing we really pushed hard for. Wanted to something we really tried to, it's a rule we have to follow, but it's really difficult, is that our boss models look so great, we want to use them out in the world all the time. We want players to say, this model looks so awesome, how can we only have it in one spot in the game? But I think it's worth it when you finally get in here and you get to do the dungeon and you see that new model. It's totally worth it to have it there. It's that feeling of you got to kill that one guy, and it's just that guy, it's not something different. So here's another example of something we've been trying to do a lot of in the dungeons is bring in that outdoor feeling, right? Lee's looking out the window here out to Storm Peak, so you really get a sense of where you are. We've done this in some other dungeons. This isn't, you can see a good example of this in Utgard Keep and Howling Fjord. There's a whole section at the end that's out on a balcony outside. Really helps ground the player that they're actually some place in the world. You're not in an instance somewhere. You're actually in the Storm Peaks. So headed through here, this is a kind of a hallway section leading up to the final boss, Loken. And Loken has a ton of story behind him. I don't want to give away everything here, but I think you guys are going to really like what we've got going on. Loken is basically a messenger to the Titans, and so when you're actually doing this fight, there's a whole cinematic sequence that plays out both before the fight and after that's going to explain a lot of what's going on here. And it's a really unique opportunity we got to do because we have so much lore with all of this Titan mythology that we can follow up. So we're able to do something really custom that feels really, really cool. And here's Loken. I think he's waiting for you guys. And that's the Halls of Lightning. Because if you really think about it, Agile could be completely under all of Northrend, could be in small sections. So we really had an opening here to kind of pick and choose and just do the places that we really felt had the most impact. And the way we kind of use, you've got Ankahet, the Old Kingdom, is what we call like the lower city, so it's the lower portion of the Agile Group Kingdom. And the deeper you get down here, the more influence you're getting basically by an old god. You guys know that the first old god being encountered was Cthulhu. And we've got a story that's going to keep moving here in Northrend with old gods and what's going on. And so if you go down deeper, you're more influenced by that. So the creatures down here are very strange. They really stand out from anything else you're seeing. You're not necessarily going to see a lot of humanoids. You're also not necessarily going to see creatures that you've seen in any other dungeon. We've got a re-emergence of the faceless ones here. Anyone who's played Warcraft 3 would obviously, I think, know who they are. We've also got a couple other creatures down here that are completely new. And one of the really big things we've been able to do in this dungeon specifically is it's underground. And how exactly are we going to make an instance underground in a cave that's going to feel great? So we're kind of working with some new technology here where we've been able to actually build a dungeon that's basically in a giant cave. So to your eyes, it'll look like exterior terrain, what you're used to seeing in some of our outdoor zones. So it'll feel huge. But the actual spaces that you're playing on are individually custom built for the dungeon. So it's kind of a mix of both indoor and outdoor, but in a way that we've never done before. Another thing that's really cool that we've been able to do here is just do some really custom fights. Now, since we're dealing with such a different type of creature, we can really mix it up and do things that we're not able to do in other places, because we've kind of got new abilities to work with, right? Like what influence has the old god had on these guys? Like, how exactly have they changed? What are the Nerubians doing right now? And what story are we going to explain? Because basically, Agile is having an effect on all of Northrend as a whole, and what we're trying to do, you're trying to basically figure out what that is and kind of get to the bottom of that. And getting through these fights, we're going to kind of explain some of those new things. So let's go ahead and cut to the live gameplay and we'll take a look. So you can see here, you get this feeling for just how huge the area is. This is where you start out. So we've got a lot of things off in the distance to help just sell the feeling of how huge the dungeon is. You're in the small section of the city, but the city is actually much larger than what you're seeing. Now you can kind of see the art style going on here. Now the Nerubians were the original place that, if you think about Naxxramas, you're going to maybe see a few familiarities here. So and you'll start to get the hints of this is where that entire art style originally came from. The entire necropolis of Naxxramas was actually pulled out from underground and used for other purposes by Kel'Thuzad, but originally it would have resided here, down in Agile Group. And you can kind of see those hints coming through. You're seeing a lot less of the influence you would see in Nax. It's not going to be the same, but you're still seeing like the art style kind of fits, and it's really important that that cohesiveness fits together. Because as we're telling the story, if they looked totally different, it wouldn't match, right? It wouldn't fit in your head. But that was a big goal, was to make sure that as we're telling this stuff, that it really fits up with what we're talking about. Here's another one of our new models. Now Scott here, he's going to maybe go into give you guys a little bit of details about some of the fights we have planned for Ankahet.
Sure thing. So the model you just saw right there was actually the first boss fight inside Ankahet. His name is Elder Madox. It's a pretty interesting fight where he takes the eggs that are nearby, hatches them, the little adds come out, you actually have to deal with all the adds, and occasionally a larger ad comes out that protects both him and the small ads going to kill the large ads. So it's interesting for the gameplay where you have to not just sit there and AE everything, but pick out the guardian that comes out and take it out. So as you go along further, deeper into Ankahet, you can see the other bosses down here. So up there on the top of that shaft of light is actually a second boss, one of the Blood Princes. He's an interesting fight where, since the Blood Princes are vampires, we actually wanted to get that kind of lore into it. He'll actually stop every so often and begin, they'll stun someone, put them on the ground, and actually start feeding on them. And the rest of the players actually have to beat the prince off of your party mate to get him to stop. So that's the second boss, and if once you beat him, you can go around the tunnel down to this next area, which he's looking straight ahead. Oh, he's going to go down the tunnel. It's an awesome tunnel. Oh.
Don't you wish?
Here we go. So we have this small temple complex here. Well, it's not that small, but here we have the third boss. Who's actually who's an orc. One of the things we really try to do in this dungeon is actually go back a little old school. We actually brought the Twilight Hammer into this. Twilight Hammer, that group of crazies that worship old gods, worship other lords, they were really big into Ragnaros. And because there's such a huge old god influence in this dungeon, we want to bring them back. So when you start this fight, a bunch of her followers actually come up from the stairs, circle her, and as you're fighting her, she actually calls out individual followers to be sacrificed. And if you don't kill the sacrifice before she does, she gets really buffed and starts hitting really hard. So that's one of them. And then the final boss, up in that large room there. As Cory mentioned earlier, I actually want to bring Faceless Ones back. So this section here, we have a Faceless Ones with a Faceless One boss, named Peril Volage. He is one of the more interesting fights in Wrath of the Lich King. We use a lot of interesting technology with him. This fight's kind of crazy, so bear with me. So you go with your party of 5 people. You're fighting him, you're having a good time, he's playing you, and you're beating him down, and you think you're doing really well. And he stops for a little bit and actually puts each of you into your own little phase. You sort of go into the shadowy world, and you start being attacked by your actual party mates, which is a really weird thing to see. We actually got technologies where we can have you being attacked by your actual party mates with names, like, so Cory was attacking me, I'd see Cory beating on me, and then Travis over here actually healing Cory as he's beating on me.
This fight sounds awesome.
Yeah, it's really, really cool. So you go through, you start beating them down, and the cool thing is that you play healer, and you're not really allowed to can't do too much damage to your party mates. Whenever, let's say, Travis is playing the rogue, he's doing really great DPS and killing them all. Once he's done with his, he'll actually flip over into one of my favorites and start helping me. So as party members start breaking out, they actually come in, help each other, and then you break out, and you continue on the clock. We do a lot of interesting things where there's actually a script that goes through the text, what class you are and what spec you are. So if you're partying with an elemental shaman, and you have to fight, you actually fight an elemental shaman, someone that actually lightning rolls these things are healing. So it's a really, really fun fight.
Awesome. So I think that wraps up our preview of Ankahet. So now we're going to move on and talk about a couple of the new raid zones we've got lined up for you guys.
Alright, so I'm going to start talking about the raid dungeons we have. First of all, Wrath of the Lich King is really exciting for us because we're going to have 10 and 25 player dungeons for all of our raids. That's a huge progress. We really wanted to make Wrath of the Lich King something where if you want to raid, you can raid no matter what size of social group you have. So if you get 10 people together, great. You can have a fun time, you can raid loot. If you can raid 25 people, fine. You can also have a whole lot of fun. You get even better with it. So the first one I'm going to talk about is Chamber of the Aspects, which is also called the Obsidian Sanctum. In Wrath of the Lich King, we have 3 raid dungeons. The first one that most of you are probably familiar with is Naxxramas, which is a huge, sprawling, got 15 bosses. We retuned it all for both 10 and 25 players. But we knew that Naxxramas couldn't be the only raid dungeon, so we had 2 additional ones. The first one here, Chamber of the Aspects, we really tried to design as we refer to as an intro to raiding. Something we feel like we really made a mistake with in Burning Crusade was Max Theradon and Will's Lair were both really, really hard when they first came out. So if you wanted to raid, you went into these zones and you got your ass kicked. Karazhan, but also a challenge for the higher end raiders. So we're kind of going to try to do a similar thing with the Chamber of the Aspects. So here you can actually choose a bit of your difficulty, and we'll show you how to do that in a little bit. Alright, so Lee, can you go ahead and choose your difficulty. So Lee, can you go to the gameplay? So this is another one of the raid dungeons where we actually use a whole lot of exterior terrain and really try to make it feel open. The way that the Chamber of Aspects works, there's actually 5 of them. There's one for each of the color of the dragon aspects. So this one you're going into black. So the main boss here is Sartharian, who's a black dragon. But when we're talking about choose your difficulty, there's actually 3 sub-bosses who are Twilight Breaks over here to the side. These are bosses that are actually not that hard individually. Like when you go through and it's a pretty straightforward fight. You go through, fight starts. One cool thing about it is we again use the phasing technology that we have, and a portal opens up, and you have to send some of your raid into the other phase, into the Twilight Realm, and defeat the creatures on the other side, so you can defeat the Drake on the outside. But these 3 Drakes, like I said, they're all pretty straightforward. They're all pretty easy. They're not completely devoid of loot. They do drop a badge, but the real prize here at the end is Sartharian in the middle of the dungeon. So how we achieved the choose your own difficulty was we said, well, if you decide you want the easiest way, you go in and kill all 3 Twilight Breaks, then you kill Sartharian, you get some fabulous loot. Sartharian's a pretty cool fight. We've got a lot of waves coming in. It's pretty crazy. We've got a lot of positive feedback from beta on it. But if you really want to try it the hard way, you don't kill the Twilight Breaks. And when that happens, the Twilight Breaks actually add into the fight as you're fighting Sartharian. And instead of fighting just Sartharian, you actually start fighting Sartharian with 1 Drake, 2 Drake, or 3 Drakes. So that's the really hard way to do it. And if you do that, you actually get a Twilight Drake as a reward. But that's really hard. We're actually expecting people might not even be able to do that until they a patch later. But you guys are really smart. I'm sure you guys will actually figure out a way to do it. That's how these things go. So, but if you don't, say, you beat it the first time, you go through, you kill all 3 Drakes, and you fight Sartharian, and you're like, hey, that was easy. Next time you go in, leave 1 Drake up. And it'll be a bit harder, not quite as hard as leaving all 3 up, but that way you actually get a little bit better loot. We actually dynamically change the loot you get from Sartharian depending on how many Drakes you leave up, which is a really, really cool mechanic. So that's Chamber of the Aspects. We'll go back to the PowerPoints, and we'll talk about the other raid that we're doing, which is Eye of Eternity. Eye of Eternity is the dungeon that's the home of Malagos, who's the aspect, the blue aspect, the aspect of magic. Because this is one of our really huge world characters, we're willing to do something super special with him. Whenever we're designing raid and dungeon encounters, we've got a huge number of bosses to do, lots of dungeons. We have to manage our time pretty well. But there's some fights where we go, okay, we're going to go completely all out with all of our technology, all of our designer time, full art. Malagos is a completely unique model. A lot of the spell effects are completely unique. And yeah, this is a really super duper epic fight. We use a lot of technologies. Vehicles are used, destructible buildings. Go ahead and go to the gameplay you can actually see. When you first go into this raid dungeon, you're like, wow, is that it? It's just the platform. Malagos is actually just chilling up there, doing his business. When you come in, he's like, well, whatever, you're insects, he doesn't really care too much about it, about what you're there, he throws some insults at you, actually has some really cool voiceover, so he actually sort of, yells down at you, what are you doing here, get out, well, whatever. So, but when you actually do want to start the fight, you actually take an item that you get from Saffron and Max, and it doesn't matter actually, your entire guild doesn't actually have to be Saffron, just one person has it, that one person has the key. You can actually go over here and interfere with It's focusing. Iris. Fire it off. No, that caused something really bad. And I was probably pretty pissed about that, so. Hold on. We were invincible and Malagos knew this, so. I said this to Malagos, one thing here we wanted to really demonstrate was that you're fighting an aspect of magic, like what would that fight be? You know, like a super crazy, lots of huge magical effects. And something that we sort of thought about is that really, story-wise, you probably shouldn't be able to beat Malagos by yourself. So during this fight, when everything looks like it's gone completely south, you actually get some help from the Red Dragonflight. That's a pretty cool moment here in the fight. So, Iris? It's gone. All right. Well, imagine this really cool guy out there flying down. He starts breathing on you, doing a whole lot of damage to the tank. Everyone's healing. Everyone's doing damage. You're all having a really great time. Really.
We can't give away all aspects of the fight.
Yeah, we can't give away everything. Yeah, this is actually on the beta. We've actually seen some people even try to there has been some testing on him. Again, we've got a huge amount of positive feedback on him, and we're really looking forward to all of you guys giving him a chance. So at this point, we will now turn the presentation over to Travis, who's going to talk about items.
Go back to the PowerPoint. Alright, so we'll take a few minutes to talk about some itemization in Wrath of the Lich King. Oh, look at that background. Thank you very much. It's one of our Orc Death Knights with the Naturalist set on the screen there. So one of the things that we wanted to address moving into Wrath of the Lich King, working from expansion to expansion, we tend to take a lot away. And one of the things that we didn't really like the feel of was the way heroic dungeons played out as far as itemization was concerned. And it was kind of confusing the first time you went through a dungeon, killed a boss, got your loot, came back in the hard version, and got the same thing. So, in Wrath of the Lich King, we went ahead and decided to take the heroic dungeons up a tier from the level 80 dungeons. So that means you'll see loot that's just flat out better than whatever you got from the previous sets, previous zones. Having a hard time finding that. Oh, there we go. So another thing that we wanted to address was the way that the Badge of Justice is played out in Burning Crusade, which we liked a lot. The fact that you could build progressive loot and work towards that end point without having to solely base your loot on a random number generator. So the only thing we didn't really like about that was the fact that 7 months into the expansion, people were still farming heroic for their 5 badges a day. So we wanted to kind of give players incentives to do harder content to get better rewards. So as a result, we introduced different currency types or different tiers of difficulty. Meaning, when you first step into Lich King and you first do your heroic dungeons, you'll be getting your new badge equivalent, which is called the Emblem of Heroism. You'll be getting these out of the heroic dungeons as well as the Max 10 raid zones. It also means that if you step into the Max 25 raid zone, you're receiving an entirely new currency type called the Emblem of Valor, which is used to purchase even better items than you can buy with Emblem of Heroism. And one more thing, as Scott mentioned, since we now have 10 and 25 versions of all the raid tiers, we have a little bit of this in the PvP where you can take multiple different pieces to accumulate the same set. we wanted to give that to the PvEers as well. So now if you collect pieces from the 10-man content and the 25-man content, any ratio, whether your guild's stepping it up a notch or you're bugging with some of your guildies, you can complete your set with the 10 and 25.
So what do you actually do for Blizzard? What does the chief operating officer do?
Well, basically global operations. All of the development efforts go up through Mike Morheim, Frank Pierce, Rob Pardo, Chris Metzen, and all of the global operations come up through me.
Okay, so you were recently here at BlizzCon at a panel about the Warcraft movie. How's the search for a director going?
Well, we're looking. Chris and I, together with the guys over at Legendary, have spoken with a number of directors and are still in the search. So I think progress is being made because we're starting to see who it is we like and maybe some of the things that we're looking for more clearly. We haven't picked yet, but I would say that it's not too far down the line.
Okay, and how are you changing up sort of the internal structure of Blizzard for the movie? I mean, is there an entirely new department being sort of set aside to work specifically on it?
Well, no, there's not a specific department, but much like our game development process, we have at a certain point we create what are called strike teams, and that strike team is kind of a cross-section of people throughout the company that help really focus in on how the game's progressing and gathering of the feedback and what have you. And so we'll have a strike team that is focused on the motion picture. Chris Metzen will be leading that. He's the one that is interacting most directly with the screenwriter, and then there's a small group of us that are involved in reviewing the script, adding notes and what have you, and then Chris does the majority of the interactions with the screenwriter.
Is the cinematics department involved in that at all?
Two of the leaders from the cinematics team have been involved in those meetings, and they're part of the group that's adding notes and providing notes, I should say, on the scripts.
Okay. So any plans on bringing any more Blizzard franchises to the big screen?
Well, we would love to bring certain of the other franchises to the big screen. I think we're going to focus on this one first and see how things are progressing, and then we'll make some decisions moving forward. We hope that we'll be able to do that, and we hope that the relationship with Legendary is everything that we expect it to be, and that we'll be able to do that together with them.
So what did you think at E3 this year?
I didn't go.
Okay. But I mean, the focus at Blizzard, I mean, clearly you're making larger announcements at your own events. You know, are we going to see a BlizzCon next year, or are we going to see even more Blizzard-specific events like the Worldwide Invitational in South Korea?
Well, while I don't have specifics to give on when we're going to do BlizzCons or Worldwide Invitationals, I think it's absolutely something that you can count on that we'll be doing both of those. Whether we'll be doing them each year or staggered, don't know yet, but absolutely Blizzard will have Blizzard-focused events.
Okay, so you just announced Wrath of the Lich King. Is it Lich King?
Yes.
Okay. You know, how long do you see World of Warcraft running? I mean, it's got 9 million subscribers right now. What's the future look like?
Well, we intend on supporting World of Warcraft for as long as people are continuing to play it. You know, when you look at these types of games, if you look at some of the games that were earlier than World of Warcraft, whether it be EverQuest or Ultima Online, Dark Age of Camelot, some of those games are still running to this day, and the number of people maybe is a bit smaller. However, they're still going, and there's still large communities that are very excited about them. And so we're hoping that this will continue for quite a long time. We'll continue providing content for as long as it makes sense, and I think that that will be for many years to come.
Okay, and it's still going to be like an expansion pack a year, basically?
That's absolutely the goal. If the game isn't ready, it won't be once a year. But the goal internally is once a year, and we're tracking, I think, pretty well against that. We'll see how it plays out, but we're making good progress. The tool set has really been improved within the development teams, and it's allowing them to be able to do the content updates and the expansion sets simultaneously, so we're not losing time in that regard. So it's going really well.
All right, so with Blizzard becoming such a globally popular company, I mean, World of Warcraft's popular everywhere, StarCraft is huge in Korea, amongst other places. How does that affect design decisions and just how you proceed forward with your franchises?
Well, I think the design decisions are influenced by things that are going on all over the place, but ultimately it's the same general group of folks, together with a lot of really great new additions, that are focusing on making a great game that they want to play. And the good news is because we have all gamers that are working in our development groups, they have a pretty good bead on what others are looking for, I think. Great games translate, and if you can make them accessible to other audiences by understanding what their interests are and how it is that they'd like to interact with the game, I think that can happen. It's tricky. It's not an easy process, but I think that we've been fortunate enough to figure that out, and the development teams speak a lot with our international offices and get a lot of feedback on how to make the games most accessible to those groups. And the good news is there's a lot of crossover, so that a lot of tweaking is not required.
A lot of tweaking, you mean, compared to the North American product versus what's released overseas?
Yeah, I mean, there are certainly things that we need to concentrate on and we need to do differently for those markets, but they're not as dramatic necessarily as you think. It's just knowing what they are and making sure that you do those things consistently and that you do it with a level of quality and attention to detail so that each of the markets feels confident that the game was made for them.
So, I mean, how different are the markets? Like, we don't get a very good sense of that here in North America. I mean, are they really vastly different?
I think the actual game, the gameplay experience, is not incredibly different. I think if you use Korean gamers as an example, they like fast-paced games traditionally, maybe slightly faster-paced and with a greater competitive edge to them than maybe their North American and European counterparts. However, I will say that I think that the North American and European counterparts are evolving to really dig the e-sport elements, the competitive elements more and more, and so the gap is I guess shrinking. Where we see the biggest differences are in the business models and the service models. So it's making sure that we create a game that people love and they feel as if it's for them, and create a business model after the game has been determined what it's going to be, and make it relevant to them so it feels like we created not only a game for that market, but also a business model, rather than trying to force our North American business model into other markets where that may not make sense. I think that's one of the things that people have struggled with from other companies, is they say, okay, this is the business model that we've chosen, and from there they try to do that everywhere, and that just does not work.
I mean, do you see there ever becoming a sort of global business model like the pay-per-play that we see a lot in Asian territories and like in PC gaming shops? Do you think that'll ever migrate and become popular in North America?
Don't know yet, but what I would say is that we will be very focused on making sure we understand each of the markets and doing what's most appropriate. If it all comes together and it's all one business model, well, that makes it a lot easier for us. But I don't know. I don't think it's going to happen anytime soon. I think that there will be differences, and that we'll have to be mindful of and implement those differences so that each market feels as if the product and the experience and the service and the pricing, etc., were made for them.
All right, so I have to ask this because our fans won't stop emailing us, but or readers, I should say, fans of you. But what's going on with Diablo?
Diablo. Well, it's obviously a very important franchise to us, and I would say that as with StarCraft and Warcraft, we will certainly get back to it at some point. We're focused very much on World of Warcraft, Wrath of the Lich King, and the content updates associated with World of Warcraft, as well as StarCraft 2. We do have some other things in development that we're not ready to talk about, but what I would say is that we love that franchise, and it's something that will get revisited at some point.
Okay, yeah, a lot of people love that franchise. It's very popular. But so in terms of Battle.net for StarCraft 2, we've heard there are going to be a lot of changes with that, including the possibility of a subscription fee. Can you say anything about that?
Well, I think one of the things I talked about earlier is that is business model. Well, business model at Blizzard doesn't come until late in the game. And what I mean by that is we focus on what the experience is, what the gameplay is, and what the overall kind of feature set is before we start talking about what the business model is. I know that there's a lot of speculation, and candidly, we just don't know yet how we're going to approach it. We're focusing on all the important stuff. And I think a lot of business people would say, oh, well, the important stuff is how we generate profit and revenue and this, that, and the other. And our feeling is that that's secondary. We need to focus on what the experience is, make sure that the gameplay is right, and then we wrap a business model around that. And so we're just not at that stage yet. But when we are, I promise we will let you know.
And then in terms of Blizzard itself, what are the plans for the company? I mean, it's an amazingly successful company. I mean, you guys have to be making a lot of money at this point, I would assume. You know, are you planning on doing some massive expansions internally in terms of hiring, or are you trying to stay sort of at the same size?
Well, we've had a huge amount of growth over the last number of years, specifically attributable to World of Warcraft. Before we launched in 2003, we had somewhere between 300 and 400 employees. Today, we have over 2,600. And so there's been an exorbitant amount of growth at Blizzard, predominantly on the service side, because we've always been very much a development-focused company. But with World of Warcraft, we've had to expand the company's focus to also include service, and we wanted to be able to provide a best-in-class service experience. And so a lot of additional people were required to be hired. As it relates to how we're going to operate moving forward, you know, we want to continue to maintain the quality of our products, and we want to make sure that when we put out products that they're Blizzard quality. And so I would not expect for us to start trying to go into a bunch of different business areas, but rather I would say that we're going to focus on what we know how to do to try to continue to improve upon that, to improve upon the service that we're providing, and to continue to try to lead in making great games.
Okay, so does that mean we won't see any console games from Blizzard in the near future?
It's not currently on our plans, but what I would say is that when we're making a game, much like a business model, we determine what is the best business model, or what's the best platform for the type of product that we're making. And so in the event that we come up with a idea on that we want to execute, and we want to create a game that everybody's excited about playing, and if we find that it's more appropriate on a console platform, then that's something that we would look at. It just happens that the games that we've really been passionate about and the ones that we really wanted to make and play have been most appropriate on PC, and so that's why you see it that way.
All right, so what's the craziest thing you've seen at BlizzCon so far this year?
Craziest thing at BlizzCon, I'd say the costumes. There's been, I think there was close to 100 different people that were part of the costume contest, and some of those were just unbelievable. And the dance contest also provided for a lot of laughs.
Okay, I missed that, but I think we're out of time, so I appreciate your time.
Thank you very much. Appreciate you covering us.
So what can we expect for the Lich King expansion?
We get a lot of neat ideas and neat features for the next expansion. Obviously, the biggest one is going to be the introduction of our first hero class, the Death Knight. Death Knight is a class that combines some magical damage dealing as well as some tanking. We're also raising the level cap from level 70 to 80. We've got new PvP ideas with siege weapons and destructible buildings, as well as a new profession called Inscription, which is kind of like enchanting for your actual abilities.
Awesome. So what sort of new talents for the various character classes can we expect?
Yeah, with us increasing the level cap, obviously there'll be a huge array of new spells, new abilities for you to learn. We haven't finished designing those, and so we're not really ready to talk about them yet, but you can expect a similar number of abilities and style of abilities that we introduced with Burning Crusade from 60 to 70.
Since the actual Death Knight is a hero class and it starts off at a higher level, do you have a ballpark for what level that starts off at?
We're still debating it right now. We've talked about level 50, level 60, basically somewhere around there.
Okay, so what sort of spells and abilities can we expect with the new Death Knight class?
Yeah, when you start out with the Death Knight, you'll start out with a kind of a small array of abilities and spells, and you'll quickly gain them to give you some familiarity with how the actual Death Knight works, Death Knight mechanics work. Obviously, you'll have a wide variety of abilities that Tom and Jeff talked about in their presentation. We've got the Ruin-style system where you actually engrave runes and set yourself up to actually use either blood, frost, or magical runes, basically.
Awesome. Now, during the presentation, they put an emphasis on the Army of Dead ability. Can you explain that?
Yeah, right now that's kind of the first spell that we've kind of created for the Death Knight as kind of a test to see how that would potentially work. Blizzard is very iterative in terms of its ideas, so we'll come up with an idea, put it in the game, see if we can make it work, and then see how that works. Army of the Dead is an idea that you can summon these undead creatures to aid you. So you cast your Army of the Dead, and then 4 or 5, 6 guys will actually come out of the earth and attack your enemies.
Right. And they also noticed for an upcoming patch there will be voice chat in the game. How will that work?
Yeah, that's our next big patch, and it will basically eliminate the need for you to have any kind of external software to enable voice chat. So you'll just essentially just plug in your microphone or headset, turn on voice chat, and you'll be ready to go. It'll be completely integrated with the UI, so you'll have UI features that show you who's talking at any one time. You'll be able to click on who's talking. If you're a healer and someone calls out, "I need a heal," you can click on them and immediately give them a heal. You'll be able to mute people. You'll be able to boost their volume, all from within the game.
Now, can you, is this party specific or is this for everyone? Like if you go into the Barrens, will you hear everyone that has a headset?
Yeah, much as we'd like to hear stories about Chuck Norris and where Mankirk's wife is, we decided not to do that. We actually have it limited to raids, parties, and custom created chat channels right now. So there will be a limit. It won't just be go into Orgrimmar and hear everyone talking about whatever it is that they're talking about.
Well, that's some pretty good news. Now, why did they move Dalaran to the new continent?
Well, still working out all the fiction, all the lore behind that, but one of the ideas right now is that, Dalaran has been shielded ever since the end of Warcraft 3, and maybe it's time for the mages to take an more active participation in the world. Let's move Dalaran, let's move it to where it can do the most good, and that is on the front lines of the war with Arthas.
That's a pretty good reason, and I'm sure we're all looking forward to the fiction behind it.
Absolutely.
Now, what sort of instances and gears can we expect right off the bat?
So we actually have here at the show, we've got something that you can do right now, our very first dungeon. It's called Utgard Keep. It's a level 75-man instance for you to go through. It has 3 or 4 bosses, depending on whether you're running in regular mode or heroic mode. And it's just kind of the first dungeon that most players are going to interact with. Introduces a new race called the Vrykul, which are kind of a Nordic Viking style race, and their alliance to the Lich King and how they're actually trying to help him out.
Well, I saw them, but I didn't realize that they were in line with the Lich King, so that's pretty cool. PvP, how is that being improved for the new expansion?
Yeah, so we really liked a lot of the little mini games that existed on a per zone basis with Burning Crusade. But one of the things we realized is that it's kind of complicated because you have to learn a new game mechanic every time. So we're going to come up with a little bit larger set of rules, but are more consistent. So it won't be a different game per zone. We'll actually have a dedicated zone specifically for PvP. And it'll have siege warfare, so you'll be able to construct catapults as well as buildings, and it'll be able to use those catapults to destroy those buildings in order to achieve objectives.
Now, during the Siege PvPs, they mentioned at the presentation that there are actually vehicles that you can hop in and drive around and wreak havoc. Can you explain that?
Yeah, we're actually still working on exactly how that's going to work, but the idea right now is you'll actually be able to command a siege vehicle. Siege tank is something that we've seen from the older Warcraft games, and then obviously some kind of catapult that you could control to help destroy your enemies. So, yeah.
Right. So is the... have you guys decided on the new battleground, how many men that's going to be per side?
Yeah, we haven't decided those type of things. We know it's going to be a siege battleground. So you'll have this PvP zone that's just kind of a free-for-all, and then you'll also have battlegrounds and arenas that take advantage of the new siege technology.
Okay, and with the Death Knight, he's starting to use the rune weapon. Can you explain that?
Yeah, so the idea behind the rune weapon is that you'll have a certain number of runes that you can inscribe on your weapon that conform to one of 3 schools of magic. And so you can decide to have all of your runes toward one particular school. You can go with a balanced approach, or you can go just basically whatever the current next fight dictates. So you can have certain reagents that will allow you to reconfigure your weapon. You won't have to go back to a trainer. You can actually do that. Okay, we need to go fight this guy. I need to set up my runes such that they follow this configuration in order to be most successful.
Awesome. And they also mentioned during the presentation that the flexibility with the new hero class is sort of being prepped for more hero classes. Can you elaborate on that at all?
Sure, yeah. So the Death Knight is the first new hero class that we're going to introduce. There are going to be other hero classes that we're going to introduce in future expansions, but right now the idea is, one hero class at a time, and that's Death Knight for right now.
Awesome. Do you have a launch window just yet?
Not, well, when it's ready.
Awesome. Thank you very much.
Well, with Wrath of the Lich King, more than anything else, our goals are to kind of outdo ourselves in every respect. What we're looking to do is deliver an expansion that has even more content than before, and higher quality level content than ever before. We want to make sure our quests are cooler than they ever were. We want to make sure the outdoor world zones are better looking than any of the ones we ever created before. We want to add some new gameplay features like the vehicles and destructible buildings, and for the first time we're adding a new character class. So really we're just trying to kick it up a notch. It's definitely more oriented toward the higher end player, but there are some key features that are kind of for everybody. Not only did we recently launch our Refer a Friend program, which was actually kind of conceived as part of our Wrath of the Lich King feature set, but made sense to launch earlier than that. So we launched it actually just a couple weeks ago, where players can get their friends into the game, and when they play along with their friends, you level up much more quickly than normal. So it kind of helps players get leveled up for Wrath of the Lich King. But in addition to that, some of the Wrath of the Lich King features that apply to everybody are the new inscription trade skill. Everybody, even at level 1, you can pick up your first trade skill. It could be inscription. Another one would be the achievement system, which kind of keeps a measure of all of your accomplishments. And that's very cool for anybody that's starting the game as a new character, because it's, coming in right fresh with them. So every accomplishment they've ever done in the game would be recorded by the achievement system, and it gives them another measurement of progress all along the way. The amount of combat that we did before was very limited. For example, the bombing runs that we did before, the player had no control over the movement of the bird that they were flying on. So what the vehicle system does, it really gives players a lot more control. So now they're able to not only drive their own vehicle, there's even the possibility of adding passengers and having them participate in it. So there's a lot more tools to do different kinds of gameplay than we had in the past. What's been really cool to see so far is that we can really use the vehicles in all different aspects of the game. We're able to do new kinds of quests. Some examples would be, you could get a demolisher and drive it around and kill 100 different scourge really quickly as part of one quest. At the same time, we can use the vehicle system to do interesting new encounters, like the Oculus and the Nexus that's coming out. You're going to be able to fly dragons around, and all the different dragons have different abilities. And so no matter what class you're playing, you kind of get a different experience when you do that encounter. I definitely think we do try to strike that balance between the casual and hardcore, and I think we are getting closer and closer toward that balance. We do integrate things into the UI, like the threat levels that you talked about, kind of the threat meter functionality, although at the same time the version that we have in our UI isn't quite as hardcore as the version a lot of players use. So I think on one hand it would be unfair to say that it dumbs down the game, because generally it's the most hardcore players right now that use a feature like that. So I think that introducing that kind of feature to everybody as a whole certainly doesn't kind of drag down the expectations for how interesting the different encounters will be and all that kind of thing. So far the beta is going very well. We've had a chance recently to increase the level cap in our beta to level 80. So players are exposed to the vast majority of the content at this point. There are probably a couple more things that are going to be coming very soon. We still are looking forward to launching our new battleground in the beta. A couple of our endgame instances, raid like Naxxramas, also the Wintergrass PvP zone should be available pretty soon. I think it'll be really interesting to see Wintergrass play out. That's something that players really haven't gotten a chance to touch yet, and there's definitely a lot of expectation. It's certainly a significant design challenge. Always very hard for us to predict how it's going to play out when who knows how many people show up. But I think it's going to be really exciting. It's definitely got a higher level of depth, gameplay depth, than most Battlegrounds do. So I think that'll be pretty fun to play.
You'll have opportunities to meet Blizzard developers and hear our thoughts on game development. You won't want to miss the costume, dance, and machinima contests. And tomorrow night, we'll close the show out with a bang, starting with level 70 Elite Tauren Chieftain, followed by Video Games Live. I know you're eager to get some hands-on time with the games, but there's still one more thing that we need to do. Last year's Worldwide Invitational featured the global premiere of StarCraft II. And I know you've been wondering if we have any big news for you at this event. Well, as it turns out, we do. It is my pleasure to present to you the world premiere of Blizzard's newest game.
It has been said. That in the end of all things, we would find a new beginning. But as the shadow once again crawls across our world, and the stench of terror drifts on a bitter wind, the people pray for strength and guidance. They should pray for the mercy of a swift death. For I have seen what the darkness hides.
Thank you. I'd like to now introduce Jay Wilson, lead designer on Diablo 3.
You will be the first people in the world outside of Blizzard Entertainment to see a demo of Diablo 3 in action. The original Diablo almost single-handedly invented the action role-playing genre. Today, we will show you how Diablo 3 improves on that legacy to provide a better role-playing game and a better action game. Before we begin, I'd like to remind you all that what you're going to see today is work in progress. Nothing is final. Now, who wants to crush some demons?
it has been said. That in the end of all things, find a new beginning. But as the shadow once again crawls across our world, and the stench of terror drifts on a bitter wind, the people pray for strength and guidance. They should pray for the mercy of a swift death. For I have seen what the darkness hides. I don't think it's safe here.
This place is thick with the stench of ghouls.
I'd like to start today by introducing the Barbarian, one of several classes you can play in Diablo 3. The Barbarian overcomes his enemies with pure brute force. He's the perfect example of our design philosophy. There's no such thing as too much power. But all that power is nothing without control. Diablo 3 has several improvements that make it much easier to use your character's abilities. For example, we've added a hotbar where the Diablo potion belt used to be to help players use any of their skills quickly and easily, so nothing stands between you and whatever it is you want to smash. We've also added a way to quick swap between two skills using the mouse wheel or the tab key. These additions make for a game that remains so simple you can play it with just the mouse, but allows for easy skill combinations and deeper, more satisfying combat. Time to venture further into these old tunes, but before we do, these current weapons just won't do. These new axes are enchanted with frost and electricity, allowing you to stun and freeze your enemies. Taken some damage. In order to recover health quickly and keep the pace of combat fast, we've added a new kind of drop item. These red globes allow you to recover health, get back in the fight without having to rely on potions. Diablo 3 is packed with vicious enemies. These berserkers have a powerful charged up attack that does massive damage. It's best to avoid it and retaliate while they try to recover. These cultists that are joining the fight are weak and easy to kill, but the demon spawn they summon are not. The Barbarian must dispatch the cultist quickly before he is overwhelmed. Working together, the Berserkers provide a tough obstacle allowing the cultists time to stack the odds against our hero. A vicious combo, but nothing a good axe or two can't handle. The environment is a big part of Diablo 3. You can destroy it, interact with it, and use it to your advantage. But the environment can work against you as well. For example, I'm sure this chest is filled with treasure, and not some kind of insidious trap. Chests in Diablo 3 won't drop entire sets of armor, but we rigged this one so we could show you the best part of the game, the loot. All gear is custom designed for each class's unique look, and these pieces represent just a few of the near endless stream of items you can find. Like our well-meaning heroes woken up something nasty. No worries, this isn't much of an obstacle for the barbarian. So many zombies in the world. If only there was a better way to dispatch them. I know, we'll use this wall up ahead. We're going to switch to some new skills now, including an old barbarian favorite, Whirlwind.
Over here!
Diablo 3 will be filled with quests, story, and events more so than any of the previous games. Here we find someone stranded in the dungeon in need of rescue. Those of you familiar with the previous games may recognize him.
King, you still live.
Ah, there you are. The writings in this place are incredible. Come, stay a while and...
It is time for shedding our enemy's blood. Not idle talk.
No one ever listens.
The barbarian can enlist some help from these two guards that have been trapped with Cain. Simply clicking on them orders them to follow you. I'm sure they'll lead a long and healthy life as your sidekicks. Nothing bad's gonna happen to them. Skeletal shieldmen who can block a lot of damage. They are backed up by skeleton archers who can deal out massive damage with their ranged attacks. The barbarian must take them out quickly while he's trying to get through those shields. He can use his ground stomp attack to stun these skeletons, causing them to drop their shields and making them vulnerable. It should be easy to pick off now.
Something in here.
And welcome to the Diablo 3 class panel. I'd like to introduce our panelists, Jay Wilson, Julie Love, and Wyatt Chang.
Hello, everybody. I'm going to take a quick picture, if you don't mind. Let's see. Can all you over here do? All right, smile. So, my name's Jay Wilson. I'm the game director for Diablo 3. With me today is Julian Love, who is our lead technical artist. Does a lot of the effects that for all the classes, monster deaths, and stuff like that. And Wyatt Ching, who is a technical game designer and does a lot of our tuning and class design. And you can go ahead and advance. We're going to talk today a little bit about how we design our classes. We're going to talk specifically about the wizard and how we came up with the concepts for the character and what our goals were for that character. We're going to talk about where the current state of the skill system is. And then we're also going to do an overview of kind of how art and design work together to create our characters. So to start, we'll have Wyatt Ching, and he's going to talk about the wizard.
So who is the wizard, and why did we decide to choose the wizard as the next class? We knew that players really want a blaster class. You know, we know that some of you are going to sit down at your character selection screen and go, who is the nuker? I want to play the glass cannon. You know, that's an archetype that people are familiar with. It's one that we've seen in Diablo and other Blizzard games. So we really view the wizard as an iteration of the sorceress. The focus, though, and the trick is to figure out how can we fulfill the fantasy of, you know, the glass cannon, the nuker, but do it in a fresh way. You know, that's going to be a theme over the next few slides. How do we combine this old and new? How do we have the familiar and yet the innovative? And how do we combine those together? And the way we chose to do that is to draw upon some inspiration from, you know, old school pen and paper RPGs. And we really went the direction of high magic. And so the question, well, what does that mean, right? High magic is sort of like manipulating the laws of the universe. It means that you're dealing a lot with time manipulation or physics. It's kind of as opposed to summoning, you know, she doesn't do life magic, druidic magic, alchemy, evil and good magic. Those would all be outside the realm of what the wizard does. She's really all about, you know, the channeling the power of the universe. We'll talk a little bit more about the wizard's personality, you know, who is she? And what we decided is that she's super ambitious and smart and powerful. She was smarter than her teachers in wizard school, you know. We're talking about the kind of person who threw off the curve, you know. She didn't study for conjuring class, but she still aced the test. We're talking about the kind of person who, you know, if she lived today, she probably would have dropped out of college to start a .com. This is the kind of person that we're talking about. Somebody who thinks that her teachers are holding her back by saying, well, you're not allowed to study this school, that's forbidden. And she's like, well, that's what I want to learn. And maybe one day that'll get her in trouble. We'll see. So I've got 4 skills to show to you guys today. The first of which is Magic Missile. And having this having the archetype of the blaster, we knew, everybody expects there to be a skill where I click somewhere on the screen, a projectile comes out, and it does damage. And the obvious first candidate probably would have been something like a fireball or a fireball. And we decided not to go that way because we really wanted to set the tone of the kit to be this high magic character. And if we started with a fireball or a firebolt, that would have set her up to be more of an elementalist. And that has some implications later on, because as we started to develop the class, and we said, well, what happens to these skills as I get better gear or level up, put more points into my skills? What does it start to look like at level 10, at level 30, at level 50, at level 90? And we knew when we started to brainstorm that, well, if we had started with fireball, you probably would have said, well, a fireball does burning damage with time. Or a fireball explodes and does AoE damage to a whole area. But if you deal with a skill like Magic Missile, you're probably looking at things like, well, when I cast this, multiple missiles come out. Or when I cast this, they start homing in on their targets. And so the behavior of a Magic Missile is going to be very different, and that was a very interesting side effect of setting that tone, setting that aesthetic direction. Next skill is Electrocute. This is a bit reminiscent of Chain Lightning from Diablo 2. There are a couple skills that are coming back as part of her weather kit. Weather control and weather manipulation is one of the areas that the wizard will specialize in. I know that there's some old favorites from Diablo 2 like Blizzard and Chain Lightning and Charge Bolt. A lot of those are going to be coming back. Chain Lightning in the form of Electrocute. And Electrocute, really, we wanted to find a way to do Chain Lightning, but to kick it up a notch. To take it in our direction, to turn the awesome dial way up. Awesome meter to 11. After doing those first two skills, we wanted to do slow time. And this was part of the desire to do something new, something to surprise the player, something to excite people. And we also really wanted to push ourselves as a development team. And we wanted to push on the programming, art, and design fronts. The skill was actually originally concepted as a game-wide stop time. And as we started to think about that, we're like, that might not be so good in multiplayer. So we redesigned it as a slow time bubble, as you see up on the screen. And the bubble actually is multiplayer friendly and actually had a lot more multiplayer and gameplay effects that were actually very interesting. So that skill turned out really well. And the fourth skill I have for you today is Disintegrate. We talked about Magic Missile and Electrocute being nuker spells. Disintegrate is the real face melter. This is a skill that when you first see it, nothing like Disintegrate has been in a Diablo game before, but when you sit down and play it, it's undeniably Diablo. It feels great to just sit there and hold down the mouse and meld your opponents. There's a bit of an interesting story about the development of Disintegrate. We were doing some experiments in the Barbarian pretty early on in the development process, and we had a skill called Giant Swing. And this came from a desire from a lot of the people on the team to have a skill where we're like, oh, well, what if we had a skill with a Barbarian, when you held down the mouse button, he started winding up his swing, and he built up in power the longer you held down your mouse button. When you let go of the mouse, he let this huge swing go, and the longer you held, the more powerful and more damage, and just obliterate everybody in front of you. And we said, that sounds awesome. So we tried it out. And unfortunately, it turns out it wasn't that fun. It wasn't that fun because, well, first of all, people had trouble not clicking in Diablo. And they're like, I'm holding on the mouse, I'm not clicking, what's going on? We had another problem because it was really frustrating if you're sitting there pulling down the charge for Giant Swing and then a ranged monster comes up to you and starts shooting you. And you're like, well come closer because I've got this Giant Swing and I want to let it go. And you'd let go and it would just whiff. And you're like, oh my goodness, that's so frustrating. And then in multiplayer, it didn't work either. Because you'd sit there and you'd have a monster coming up to you and you'd charge up your Giant Swing, and then all your teammates would kill the monster and run off without you, and you're stuck here, charging up your awesome swing. So it didn't work. But we sat there and thought about it, and we said, what we could do is we could stick that skill on the wizard, but make it a ranged skill. And that's where Disintegrate came from. When it's a ranged skill, I don't have to worry about ranged monsters. I don't have to worry about my teammates getting ahead of me. I can just hold down the mouse, and instead of unleashing a huge power when I release, we made it start with a low power, And the longer it's on a target, it heats that target up and increases in damage over time. And that's how
we did a whole bunch of really wild ideas, and I'm just going to blast through a bunch of them just so you guys can see what we were thinking. This is a very early idea that we really liked called skill rings, and the idea was that we really liked about the original Diablo that drops played more directly into your skills. So we had these rings that would drop, and you could attach them to skills, and they would upgrade the skill or change it in some way. We thought that was pretty neat. So this is a radial skill system. We thought it was kind of neat to build out from the circle, but what we decided was that it essentially was no different than a normal kind of vertical skill tree, and because of that, we didn't really see the point of just changing the look of it. Radial beads, this is another version of the radial that looked nicer. This is a skill wheel. I honestly don't remember what this did. I think there was some kind of spinning involved or something, but it's pretty cool, but a little complex. Yeah. And the thing I will mention here is if you're looking for hints to other classes and stuff, most of this stuff was developed before we had any other classes in the game, and a lot of the skill names are just totally made up, so you can read it if you want, but you're probably not going to find anything. So skill cards, the idea was that these outer cards, the kind of more orange cards, were basically what you took, and when you combine them together, you got a skill out of it, which we thought, again, was really cool because it had a lot of customization to it, but as you can see, it's a little daunting. So, no comment. So we left no stone unturned, is I guess what we're trying to say. This is really essentially a very simple version of the Diablo 2 or World of Warcraft talent system. And you can kind of see where we're going here and where we ended up. We're kind of slowly drifting back towards Diablo 2. So again, we just took that idea and put it on its side. We had a different way to advance here than really revolved around spending points on a single tier, and so that people could get into kind of any of them, but we found that just kind of opened up too many options. This one was really interesting that we liked, but it didn't quite work the way we wanted. And the idea was that instead of spending points on the skill itself, you spend points on upgrades to that skill that would change the way the skill worked. Now the problem was because you could spend on all the upgrades, everyone did. So every time you got a skill, you just spent all your points on every single upgrade, and so nobody looked different. And what we liked with customization is that players would look even more different from one another. Even if I'm using, Magic Missile, my Magic Missile doesn't look like someone else's Magic Missile. So it didn't quite work, but we really liked the idea of it. This was a school-based kind of idea where people had different specializations and you'd combine them together, and I really don't remember exactly what it meant. Yeah, we just kind of think this one looks cool. And this is our Wargamer skill advancement system. Again, just trying out different ways to visualize aesthetically kind of the advancement. But again, a lot of these turned out to be really different ways to do the same thing, which led us to kind of what we learned. And it's a saying around Blizzard, different but worse isn't better. Better is better. So we really try to go and come up with the craziest ideas we can, but in the end, if we feel like we can't come up with something that's better than tried and true, we'll go back to tried and true. So, but we also had some ideas that we liked and we knew we wanted to incorporate. So the first one was randomly dropped skills. We liked that idea. We liked there to be some kind of way to modify your skills through drops. That seems like it would be a good match with the core of the game. And skill modification. So we really combined those two things together to get our skill system. An evolution of the Diablo 2 skill system. It includes a lot of kind of active skills, which are what we call kind of skills that you use against the monsters, and then a lot of what we call passive skills that allow players to kind of modify how they play, and really we see the passive skills almost like the new version of synergies, where instead of just doing more damage, you can actually change the nature of the skill or to get other kinds of things. Maybe if you want to go up and get, say, teleport in one of the trees, but you don't want all the skills along the way, there's passives that benefit you no matter what. Like there are passives that will benefit across class, so that you can always kind of find a way up the tree and get something that you really like. So we also have skill rooms, which is a new system, and we do plan on adding a respec, but we haven't designed it yet. Yes, yay, respec. So, as I mentioned earlier, this system's not done. We really think it's on the right track, but there's some major issues that we still want to deal with. And so, the first one is, it's got kind of an intimidating number of choices in it. We had a lot of fun making this tree. We really made these, kind of filled them out specifically for BlizzCon. And I think we went a little overboard, but that's okay, because it's easier to cut than to add. Right now, players end up with a high number of skills, primarily because we don't let them spin deep on a skill that they already have. On an active skill, we let them spin deep on passives. We're going to change that so people can spend multiple points on an active skill. So if you get Magic Missile, you can dump more points into that. So, as I say, no deep spending on signature skills equals bad. A lot of people just didn't like it. Once I got Magic Missile, you want to spend some more points on Magic Missile. Fair enough. Assigning skills right now is kind of unintuitive. Unfortunately, World of Warcraft has ruined a lot of would-be Diablo players. They want to drag everything off that tree, but unfortunately, if you drag off the tree, then left-click drag, left-click to add points, you're going to spend points by accident. So we've got to figure out a way to get skills off the tree that that's intuitive to a lot of players and not just to Diablo 2 players. But that's probably a UI problem. Respec system still to be designed, but as I said, we would like
the notion of we're going to use physics so that we can impart the forces of the player onto the monsters themselves. But we took that another step further, which was, well, let's not just impart the forces, let's actually pass on the damage onto the characters so that they can die in different ways. But we added to that the idea of critical deaths, which is if you critical kill a monster, that it'll be really loud and noticeable. And the only way to make that totally loud and noticeable above the normal gameplay of a Diablo game is they have to explode. But even though this stuff was really fun and we loved it, there were still sort of some things missing, we felt. And that was the kind of deaths that appeared in Diablo 2, where they were sort of handcrafted for every monster. And what they do is they give monsters a lot of their feeling and emotion, and which is something that's really hard to do with monsters in Diablo because they just kind of live to die. So we decided to roll forward this idea from Diablo 2 and reserve some monsters for what we call special deaths, which are handcrafted exactly like they were in Diablo 2. And what we like to do with this is we look at a monster and figure out what is that monster about, how is he built, and then try to punch that up and bring it to the forefront again. So we have something new to talk about today, which is this idea of skill-driven deaths. We showed you a little bit of this at the WWI announcement with Locust Swarm, where the locusts literally eat the flesh off the monster's body. But that's not where that idea started. It really came from Disintegrate. And the reason we started doing this was, we said, well, we want to do a Disintegrate skill. But you can't really do a Disintegrate skill if it doesn't actually disintegrate something. So the death is really a core part of the way that skill is going to perform. And then once we got into the game, we went nuts. And we decided, well, let's do more of that. And so here's a skill you're seeing, which is called Burst of Acid, that'll literally melt monsters all the way down to the floor.
I have no idea.
And of course, we brought something else forward from Diablo 2, which is this notion that rares are filled with a lot of evil energy, so that when they die, they need to explode. And why? Just because explosions are cool.
style player and run that side of the field, or do you usually depend on the situation?
Well, we haven't announced any specifics about PvP, but I'll tell you kind of our intent with it. We consider competitive play as really a tenet of Blizzard that I don't think the Diablo games have quite lived up to yet. And so we definitely want to focus more on PvP. Our main focus is always going to stay cooperative. That being said, the system, a lot of the systems in the original Diablo and Diablo 2 really hurt cooperative play. It is very common for people to go on the battle map and password their games because they want to deal with the chance that someone might try to kill them. So in the core game, we really don't want there to be anything that's not neutral in PvP. Now that being said, there is a percentage of players, which I'm not sure how big it is, I think it's significant, who they just want to be able to kill the crap out of each other anytime they want, anywhere they want. And I think one of the core problems that we run into, that Diablo 2 runs into, is that it tries to split the difference, and it doesn't really work, because the PvP people don't get the game they want, and the PvE people get PvP, and any PvP is too much. So we don't have a solution for that yet, but we want to find one, and if we can, we'll try to do something for both.
My question is, a lot of players get attached to the characters that they build up from ground zero, and at the end game there's a lot of lightning immune, fire immune, and whatever immune monsters that you just arbitrarily rule that their abilities don't work on. You know, they built up this character from scratch, and they don't want to get to end game, and then all of a sudden they just can't kill this random mob in the forest, just all of a sudden immune to lightning. Are you going to do anything to get around that to make the game more enjoyable in game?
Yeah, there's two sides to attack that problem. One is on the character skill side, and the other one is on the monster side. Dealing on the character skill side, Diablo 2 is really a game of focusing all your energy on making one or two of your skills as awesome as they can possibly be. You know, maybe I'm a whirlwind barbarian and I kill 99% of the things in the game with whirlwind, so when I come up against a physical enemy monster, you know, I'm out of luck, and I hope I have berserk, right? And that kind of repeats itself through all the classes, where almost every class build is based around one offensive skill. So we attack that on the class side by making sure players are incentivized to have multiple skills that they want to use. For example, if I'm playing as a wizard, I'm not going to make only the best electrocute. I'm going to have other magic missile or disintegrate in my arsenal. On the monster side, I think that immunities is sort of a way to make monsters challenging or different. And it doesn't necessarily make them fun, for lack of a better word. You know, Jay alluded to basically how we remove health potions because monsters just come along and grab you. I think they leave a lot of opportunity for us on the design side to make more interesting combat interactions. But I think we definitely want to look at things other than immunities as a way to make the game harder.
Thank you. Next question.
One of the problems that was in Diablo 2 kind of with cooperative play was that when a monster died or dropped loot, it was a free-for-all scramble to try and grab the loot and be the first person to pick it up. Is there any plans to address that, change it, maybe so that there's some sharing?
We already have. If you go play the build, loot drops on a per-player basis for everyone. So if you see an item hit the ground, it's your item. Nobody else can even see it. So you can just pick it up. And same thing for them. So we actually drop a little bit more items overall so that everybody gets a good amount. And the only thing we still have to overcome with that system is just the player understanding what's going on. But we don't think that's too big a problem for us to overcome. So and it works pretty good. We generally have really good response on it.
Were items still going to be able to be traded between characters?
Yeah, oh yeah. And the thing is, once you pick an item up, you can drop it back on the ground and anybody can be able to pick it up. So one of the things that happens that's really cool is when people are running around in the row and their inventory gets full, they open it up and they just start tossing stuff out they don't want. And then other people are like, hey, that items. And they run over and they start tossing out. So you get these little crowds and areas where players are just tossing items to each other. It's pretty cool. And it really promotes kind of what you're talking about. Really cooperative focus.
Hey, I think I speak for most Diablo players when I say the most annoying thing about the game was
run system where you run bosses like over and over and over again. You can do it for months with like finding nothing. And so I was just wondering, in D3, is that going to be completely changed in any way at all?
Look, I do like Magic Find. Sorry, I do understand the frustration. Some people will. One common tactic was to say, for example, level of sorceress. You actually like playing barbarian in those, but some players will level sorceress to 9 class load. Magic Find is to look for gear for their barbarian, which kind of seems like a little bit of a degenerate gameplay mechanism. One of the reasons that happened is because for a class like the sorceress, she didn't really have any items or magical properties that benefited her other than Magic Find. I mean, she wanted a run speed and maybe a little bit of mana plus skills, but for the most part, she could load up on MF, out the window. So that's definitely one way to attack a problem, is to have alternative magical properties that are attractive to the player other than just Magic Find. On top of that, though, I think we also want to look at ways for players to acquire items other than simply running the same boss over and over again. I think that's sort of a content creation side, where people load up their thread system or something over and over. So we can take a look at that too. Thank you.
I was wondering if there would be an achievement for, like, if you complete the game on Hello, like on Battle.net, you have a emblem next to your name. Will that be incorporated, or what do you guys think?
We're not really far along, but if we would do something like that, that sounds like us though, but that sounds pretty cool. I'm sure we'll do something akin to that, but we don't have any specifics. We're not really that far along.
Howdy, I was just wondering, while I was playing the demo build, I noticed that the wizard had a lot of power over his environment, and I was wondering if the other classes would have that same level of environmental interaction.
Can you give an example?
Well, the wizard was able to, like, some beams and girders. He was just throwing them at his enemies, using them almost as weapons. As from what I can see, I saw those weapons.
I don't know what everyone's cheering about. I think the answer is yes. I mean, every class is different, and certainly one of the things that we see kind of early on is the wizard feels a little more destructive because mainly because it's so many projectiles that just kind of travel until they smack into something. But later on, pretty much all the classes start getting something that's really good for that. Even the barbarian gets like Silent Slam, Lead, which allows him to really kind of extend his range a little bit. So yeah, definitely. All right, thank you.
Two things. For one, you talked about co-op. Diablo 2 was 8 players. How many are you shooting for this time around?
We haven't nailed down a specific number. We actually, and doing more is not hard. Technically, it's actually in some ways easier for us because it puts less load on our servers. We have more players and less games. That being said, we find that about 4 is the almost perfect number. And then as we get over 4, the game kind of becomes so chaotic that it becomes less fun. So we're probably thinking about limiting the 4 for that reason, but we haven't decided. I would also add to that, if you think about when you hear this like 4 number, how do we come up with that? Is Diablo 2 had 8, but how many times did you actually have 8 people playing, really together? And I'd ask yourself that as well.
And number 2, I tricked you guys into like revealing, is there going to be a ranger or something? I mean, Amazon, Rogue.
Oh, I announced both the other classes earlier this morning. The 4th class is Word. He's going to get people with his leg. And the 5th class is finally going to make the Outbeat playable.
MMOs tend to raise the bar on what you made your character yours as opposed to everyone just looking the same once you get level 90 something?
Well, one of the things that we're focused on, we did try things like hair changes, skin tone, facial, and stuff like that. And what we found was that you really couldn't tell because the character on the screen is so small. We don't have a strong impetus to keep that in, just because it doesn't make. It's almost kind of disappointing when you create a character. You go like, oh, I want this hair and this skin, and you get in the game and you're like, does he really have that stuff? So we do want to create a lot more permutations of the looks of items. And I'd say that right now we're not really happy with how much there is in the game. And so that's one of the things we're really going to focus on. There's so many look switches that at the end game, there are a lot of different variations of how players look and play. The rune system also plays into that. We announced that earlier today. That rune system allows you to take items that you find in the world, runes, and specialize your skills with them. And they're kind of enforced customization because you can only change based on what runes you found. And based on what runes you found, you can only pick one to put into your skill. So we're trying to do that in a couple of ways, really adding a lot more customization to make the character feel more like his yours.
Thank you.
Next question.
I was wondering that in the first Diablo, there was a very distinct survival horror element to it. At least that's what I took from it. And the second Diablo was a very powerful action game where you fought hordes and hordes of monsters. And I felt the first Diablo, you were more fragile than in the second Diablo. I was wondering how you could do that in the third Diablo.
The approach that we've had, and this is something that I think this kind of alludes to, but not directly, is we love both Diablos. Because Diablo 2 is newer. There's a lot more focus.
Hi, my question was about persistence in the multiplayer. In Diablo 2, nothing really persisted except for waypoints. And I was wondering if, even in the single player Diablo 2, it was really just a multiplayer except with cinematics. So I was wondering how Diablo 3 is going to differentiate between the single and the multiplayer, or if there was going to be any persistence in the world.
That's a good question, because I don't want to reveal anything. We're not really focusing on persistence as a primary goal. If anything, a lot of times persistence makes a lot of our cooperative play, especially kind of drop in, drop out cooperative play, really hairy. But we do want to get the sense that the world changes and progresses. We're most likely going to focus on kind of a lot more milestones where the world transitions to something new. So that's kind of our vague plan right now. Like, we definitely want you to have areas of the game you go to, and then you come back to later on and something different has happened. The world's changed. So but we want to focus on kind of big events, not general persistence. Like, I've cleared monsters out from this area, and I want to re-clear. A lot of that is kind of a tenet of the Diablo games. Part of the replayability is resetting the world. That's where that comes from. So we almost don't want too much persistence because we want you to be able to redo a section when you like. But trying to focus on those kind of big events is where we're really going to try to do that.
Hi, previously I was attending the previous Diablo panel, and I thought there was the rune systems and the skill tree, and I think it's a good idea. But my question is a small portion of the game, which is a crafting system, because the previous Diablo 2, there is a player using a right-click to pick up the potion and transmute it into the illuminated potion, which is more useful than the rest of the health potion. So is there any new features or crafts that can do a similar thing? Like you can craft some of the runes that you could upgrade in, or something like that?
So the question is there going to be crafting similar to the Warhammer Cube crafting in Diablo 2? Will there be crafting? I'm not going to say yes or no.
I think the idea, I think we'll probably explore some kind of item creation mechanic. We're probably exploring it right now, we're just not talking about it. In terms of the Roger Cube, the Roger Cube was really cool only because you didn't have very much space. When you actually think about what it did and how you had to interact with it, it was pretty annoying. And so we really don't want to have that mechanic literally bad, because we'd really rather create a mechanic that is better. So we're trying to create a little bit more space in the inventory, a way to upgrade the inventory over time so that it gets bigger. But as it does, it stays more inventory. It stays simple, essentially, so that you can interact with it. We will have some kind of, I'm sure, item creation system, but it's probably not going to look anything like Windows or the Rockets.
Thank you.
Hello, my question is about item stats or stats generally. In Diablo 2, stats on level up were allocated at the discretion of the player, and that mechanic ultimately degenerated into dumping as much of the stamina as you could, getting enough strength and dexterity to equip the items you wanted, and never putting any points into energy. I've noticed already in the demo that stats on level up are no longer at the discretion of the player. But I'd like to ask how you're going to encourage the player to not look exclusively for stamina on their items.
So, I think the question, if I catch you, is how do we make sure that players diversify what stats they're using? Okay. So, essentially, we're trying to keep the stats almost the same as Diablo 2. But we did make a few changes, and we changed specifically what they affect. I don't think it's possible to make every class want every stat. But what we really want is there to be no stat that has no use, and about three out of the four major primary stats that are very useful. And definitely at the very minimum, two that are super useful, one that's like pretty good, and one that's like, well, I'm fine if I do. The best way to describe it is every single stat. I'll try to use an example here. We took energy out and we put a stat called willpower in. Willpower increases spell damage. So a wizard would definitely want that. Vitality is still there, that increases health. A wizard would also want that. Dexterity increases crit chance. And also dodging, both of which would be really useful for a game class like the wizard. I'm using the wizard as an example. But that's probably a little bit more secondary. And strength, I believe strength increases your regen rate for health clones, or it has something like that. I don't remember exactly what it was. So if you get an item that's got some strength on it, it's not horrible. But for the wizard, strength really isn't per stat. For some builds, dexterity would be awesome. There are some builds that you really focus on either really high dodge or really high crit, and suddenly dexterity becomes very, very important. So that was really our goal, is to try and focus on more ways to make those stats useful across all the classes.
Thank you.
Yeah, my question is about item drops. In Diablo 2, the gameplay, especially late in the game, was almost exclusively focused on incredibly rare items like Grandfather's Sword, Wind Force, and then later, of course, rare words like Enigma and Breath of the Dying. In Diablo 3, will you be moving away from items that take multiple months to try and acquire, or would that still be the standard?
So if the question is about whether or not we are making fundamental changes to the way items are generated and dropped in Diablo 3.
Mostly just if there's going to be anything that's like really super rare, like less than 0.001.
We announced the game at WWI, but here kind of our biggest features are the new playable class, which is the wizard. We wanted to take kind of the classic sorcerer or mage type class and explore kind of areas that we hadn't seen people do with this kind of class, which is really kind of usually you see these classes are kind of like an elementalist. They shoot fire and ice and lightning and things like that. But we wanted, to get into ideas like, conjuring and time control and reality control and things like that, without changing the nature of the class from being a very blasty, AOE, fragile kind of glass cannon. So that means we've created skills like slow time and acid clouds and things like that, and all of them really are meant to kind of conjure a different idea of what this class can be. With the Barbarian, the idea is that, and we do this with every class, we focus on what is the core kind of tenet of that class. And for the Barbarian, it's that he's just kind of this physical, unstoppable force. So everything he does, no matter how fantastical it looks, all derives from some kind of physical action. So that's really his big focus. We try to avoid anything that we think doesn't. Like we had an idea once that, we could have his whirlwinds spawn tornadoes. And the thing we didn't like about that is that now the tornadoes are doing all the damage. And, really it should be him doing the damage because it's all about his physicality. But we also kind of wanted to be able to do something a little more interesting with them. Physical characters can sometimes be difficult to come up with because they can't slow time and throw lightning, so they hit things, and so trying to come up with ways to make them more interesting is sometimes difficult, but we really wanted to tap into this idea that was introduced in Diablo 2 where the barbarians were descendants of the ancients, this being a really powerful race that used to exist in Sanctuary. And so they tap into these kind of ancestors to get these really powerful abilities, and one of them is Hammer of the Ancients, which is basically this big kind of mythical hammer that he hits stuff with. And while the hammer itself looks kind of mystical and magical, the result is he's still hitting things with a giant hammer. So we felt like it fits for him, but it also lets us do something kind of cool that you wouldn't normally do with a physical character. Our skill system is really an evolution of the Diablo 2 skill system, where there we had just kind of a lot of, a small number of skills, and those skills were later changed so that they could affect one another. So you could buy a bunch of one skill and it would increase the power of another. And what we've tried to do is split the synergies is what they were called, into their own skills. And make them more interesting than just more damage. You could take a damage skill and increase its cast rate, or increase its critical chance, or different kinds of things that are still kind of equivalent of either more damage or more utility. And you can work your way up through the tree by just spending on those, so you can still focus on kind of the skill that you want the most. But we wanted to kind of add something new to the skill system, and to do that we added something called skill runes. We took an idea that we saw in the original Diablo, which was books that dropped that give you skills. And we kind of liked that idea, except actually giving you skills seemed like it was too far. Like we didn't want to rely on drops for player power. We wanted to rely on, items are great for, increasing player power, but we need to have some kind of system so that they can gain power on their own. But what we decided was we wanted to come up with a drop that would modify a skill. And so the skill runes, essentially, they drop off monsters and they have power levels. And so as they get more and more powerful, you can do more stuff with them. There's a whole bunch of different runes. And plugging a rune into a skill basically changes what that skill can do. As we showed in the class panel, Skull of Flame is a great example. It's it's basically like a thrown bomb. When you put a multi-strike rune into it, it causes it to bounce, and so it'll hit multiple times. When you put a lethality rune in it, it burns on the ground and leaves like a patch that will catch things on fire. So just basically being able to change up skills so that even if you and your buddy make the same character and focus on the same skill, you can still be different.
The Zerg swarm came, as was foretold. And the Protoss, firstborn of the gods, rose to fight them. Now, the Zelnaga that forged us all are returning. What do they come to save? Or to destroy?
Eventually.
Damn, Jimmy. You've been holding out on me.
Cutting it pretty close there, Matt. Never left you hanging before, sir. Fair enough. Just get us the hell out of here.
All batteries, concentrate forward firepower. Spin up drives 2 and 6. All hands brace for warp jump on my mark. Mark.
What the hell happened? We ain't seen the Zerg in years. Why attack Marsara now? It's not just Marsara. You need to see this.
Zerg swarm launched a full-scale attack spread throughout all outer rim planets.
Sustained heavy
Casualties in the billions.
minutes ago. The Zerg attacked a Dominion military research facility.
Sweet Mother Mercy.
New exclusive video footage confirms the Queen of Blaze is in fact leading the swarm.
We always knew she'd be back, but what's she after? She's come to finish the job.
Stories themselves are huge. You know, we really wanted to immerse you in the universe. We really want to introduce a lot of characters to you, but that meant that the stories kept on getting bigger and bigger. You know, we're oftentimes kind of victims of our own creativity. You know, we really can't help ourselves in making these mammoth epic undertakings on our stories. So the next problem that we kind of learned was that the story mode itself demands 3 to 4 times as much as kind of our previous games. You know, we have all these in-game cinematics, we have all this new technology we have to develop, we really got to figure out how to integrate it with the missions themselves. You know, so that was kind of another big challenge. And to give you some examples of that, you know, like alternate missions. You know, this is kind of an example of StarCraft 2 mission flow. Now, all of you that are taking pictures, those are not the actual mission names. You know, we decided to go ahead and hide those and kind of do a different flow, but it kind of gives you an idea of what it's like to lay out a branching campaign. You know, to have a campaign like this where, depending on which branches you take and how far you go down, it really means that we have to add a lot more missions to each campaign to really make it interesting. You know, another example is the use of in-game cinematics. You know, the more that we developed our in-game cinematic technology and, you know, really seeing how cool they came out, you know, we really felt like there's a certain amount that we had to do to really deliver the stories at the scale that we want to deliver. And, of course, lots of characters means lots of development. You know, we really want to support each character with missions of their own. We really want to make sure that they have lots of dialogue and character arcs, and we really want to layer that story in there, you know, which is, again, very different than, let's say, a game like Warcraft 3, where we keep you on that linear path, and we introduce characters and take them away whenever we want as developers, and now we're really putting that more into the player's hands, so we really got to account for all those different possibilities. So, what should we do is what we started asking ourselves. Well, we came up with 3 options. Option A, we decided, was we could simplify the campaign, which is to kind of make the game much more linear, have less choice and less characters. Really, in a lot of ways, going back to what we did with Warcraft 3, but, you know, maybe adding some of the in-game cinematics, and, you know, but really just kind of doing a little evolutionary leap. You know, this is kind of the option which I call, you know, surrendering the white flag and giving up. So option B is make each campaign really epic, but release them each as a separate product. So this one, the idea was, you know what, let's just make it big. You know, let's make this thing totally huge, you know, make each campaign stand on
on its own. Not really make the campaigns have to rely on each other, introduce tons of new characters, make the universe really huge. This is the option which I kind of like to refer to as the go big or go home option. And then our last option is the compromise in the middle but delay the game greatly. So this is the option that we kind of do a little bit of everything, not quite make it as big as we could, but try to deliver, kind of somewhere in the middle, but it would have meant, delaying the game quite a bit. So this is, the option which is not really make anyone happy or anyone sad option. So we had to decide. So this could backfire on me greatly, but, I'm going to go ahead and try it anyways. So how many of you guys want option A? How many of you guys want option B? Option C? Well, I'm here to announce the StarCraft 2 Trilogy. So the first game, which is going to be released, is going to be the Terran campaign called Wings of Liberty. So this campaign is going to be, very much, centered on what I was showing you in the demo. So it's going to be about Jim Raynor. It's going to be about him as a freedom fighter, his fighting as Dominion, and most importantly, really trying to resolve his relationship with Kerrigan, the Queen of Blades. The second product we're going to release is centered on the Zerg, Heart of the Swarm. So as you can see from the picture, this campaign has everything to do with Kerrigan. And I'm sure y'all can guess at this point what the third one is going to be. Legacy of the Void, with Zeratul as your main character. All right, so what does all this mean? First of all, I just want to assure you that nothing changes for multiplayer. We're still doing all three races completely developed for multiplayer and skirmish mode. So, we're just as devoted as ever in making sure that each of the races are completely different, completely balanced with one another, have, pretty much the same amount of units and strategies. So nothing changed for multiplayer. All the changes are only just kind of for the story mode and for the single player game itself. So each campaign should feel like an epic story. We don't want a cliffhanger at each one, so that really allowed us to make each campaign really epic. So we really want to make sure that there's a beginning, middle, and end. Even though there's going to be, all the major characters will show up in all three campaigns, but we really want to devote ourselves to each campaign having a character arc that deals with you as the main character. So in the Terran campaign, that's going to be Jim Raynor. So we really want to make sure that at the end of Wings of Liberty, we really deliver a great ending. It's not one of these kind of lost episodes that just cliffhangs and come back next week. We really want to make you feel like it really is a full product in and of itself. All right, so the really good news about this, which is going to kind of be the next part of my presentation, is that since we made this decision, it meant that a lot of the things we were doing to kind of try to spread out all the content, we can now just focus into each product. So it really meant that previously, we're trying to kind of go more to that option C, which meant kind of less missions for each campaign, less cinematics, things like that. And now that we made this choice, it really allows us to concentrate on each product and make it huge and epic and awesome.
This is Kerrigan. We've neutralized the Protoss, but there's a wave of Zerg advancing on this position. We need immediate evac.
Belay that order. We're moving out.
What? You're not just gonna leave them?
All ships prepare to move away from Tarsonis on my mark. Gunsman, signal the fleet and take us out of orbit. Now!
Commander? Jim? What the hell's going on up there?
They can be terrain hazard.
And of course, the ultimate
And those are going to be online?
I hope so.
I hope so too. Time for YouTube.
And now it's your Brian Cusa.
Great fan reaction to the rainbows in Diablo 3, where I think we're going to start adding them to StarCraft 2 soon. All right, so this is actually going to be a really fun panel. I have a lot of cool stuff to show you guys today. We're mainly going to be concentrating on talking about the single-player campaign, and we also have some really cool announcements. So you might want to call your friends that think this is just another lame game design panel, because we're going to show some cool stuff that we didn't show in the opening ceremonies, and we're going to make a pretty big announcement. All right, so we're going to start the PowerPoint.
Hello?
Because PowerPoints are exciting. Let's see if they actually are going to pay attention to my clicker. There we go.
No, I'm in the panel.
I know. Isn't that an exciting slide? That's the best. All right. Let's see.
Going through, there's a security area.
Here we go. Okay.
Go all the way to the left.
So with StarCraft 2, we want to do something a lot different than we've done in the past. You know, a lot of our previous RTSs, we've kind of done this very linear sort of formula. You know, really cool missions, but we've done a very kind of linear progression. And we've tried to integrate as much story we can as we could in the game. But with StarCraft 2, we want to really try to rethink how to approach an RTS campaign. You know, we felt like if you look at the real-time strategy game genre, it's really become multiplayer first, and there's a lot of opportunities to tell really epic, cool, immersive story within real-time strategy games, and no one's really taken advantage of it yet. So we want to take a shot at it. So another big kind of goal for the campaign was to emphasize player choice. You know, again, most time in RTS campaigns, you just kind of play mission 1, you play mission 2, mission 3, and you don't really have any choice within it whatsoever. So we want to make sure with StarCraft 2 that players have choices. They have choices of what technology they're going to buy, they have choices of what missions they're going to choose, and which characters they're going to interact with. And another big goal was varied and interesting missions. Something that we kind of pride ourselves about on the RTS campaigns is that we really try to make each mission very unique and very different. You know, we try to avoid having just kind of a standard mission where you build up a base and you just go crush some enemy base. We always try to make sure there's an interesting gimmick to every mission that really has a unique strategy to it, so you don't feel like you're just playing a multiplayer game within a single-player story. You know, and we kind of are going to push that even more than we've done before, where you're going to see units within the single-player campaign that may not even show up in multiplayer. So, you know, we really almost are taking single-player and trying to make it as unique as possible and not being constrained by the things that we're doing in multiplayer. And then lastly, but probably most importantly, is we really want to immerse players within the StarCraft universe. You know, we really didn't have a lot of opportunity in previous RTS games to do that, but with Warcraft 3, we really started trying to do that. You know, really try to have interesting storylines, try to give you more of a sense of the map of Azeroth in Warcraft 3. You know, with StarCraft 2, we want to take that to another level. We really want you to understand, you know, the galaxy. We want you to kind of visit these different planets, really have a sense kind of geography, really understand who the major players are, the different political factions, the major characters, and really kind of how it all comes together so that you understand the universe as a whole. All right, so I want to introduce Jim Raynor, who some of you may have heard of. So within the Terran campaign, Jim Raynor is the main character, and he's the character you're going to be playing as. So kind of in our in the previous StarCraft, you were kind of this vague character, the commander or the executor. You know, we really never gave you screen presence. So we took a different approach with StarCraft 2 and really are putting you in the shoes of the main character. So you're directing Jim Raynor, his actions, and kind of determining to some extent, you know, who Jim Raynor is going to become depending on the choices that you make. And the campaign itself starts with Marsara, which is a planet within the StarCraft universe, and a planet that was very important in the previous game. You know, it was kind of the first contact for when the Zerg came in and invaded the Dominion. Well, back then it was the Confederacy, but, you know, kind of invaded Terran space on Marsara, and that was, you know, really where everything got kicked off in StarCraft. So we thought that'd be a really appropriate place to start off StarCraft 2. So Jim Raynor has kind of returned to Marsara. Jim really hasn't had a lot of luck since the previous game. You know, he's, you know, really fighting a losing battle against the Dominion. You know, he's turned into a freedom fighter, and you know, he really is trying to take down this empire that he himself kind of helped create by being allies with Arcturus Minx in the previous game.
Yeah.
And the other character I want to talk briefly about is Tychus Finley. So, oh, you guys already seen Tychus? So Tychus, you may have seen actually in our pre-rendered cinematic that we showed when we premiered the game. He was actually the Marine getting bolted into that suit. And he's a character that wasn't in the previous StarCraft. He's a new character to the universe, but he's a character that actually has history with Jim Raynor. They actually knew each other a long time ago, and were kind of rabble-rousers together. So they have an interesting relationship, and you know, you're going to see that in this intro movie that I'm about to show you. So one of the things that we're going to do a lot of in StarCraft 2 is have a lot of in-game cinematics. Our cinematics group has really been working hard at learning a lot of real-time techniques so that we can have a lot more cinematic and story footage than we've done in the past. So the reason I'm kind of introducing these characters is because the first in-game movie I'm going to show you today kind of involves all these characters. It happens on Marsara, within kind of a bar that's on Marsara, and you're going to see Jim Raynor and Tychus Finley. So I'm going to go ahead and show you guys that. So go ahead and I'm going to now go ahead and demo the game. So I'll be sitting down for this portion.
life sentence. What? Did they give you time off for good behavior?
That's right, old buddy. I'm a model citizen now.
So to what do I owe the pleasure?
Just a friendly business proposition. Do you even know what the Dominion are doing out here?
I'm guessing you're about to tell me.
Digging up alien artifacts, old buddy. Your boy Minsk has gone crazy for them. But I got a contact that'll pay top dollar for every artifact we liberate from the Dominion.
I guess I can hardly pass that up now, can I, Tychus?
Partners then. 60-40.
70-30. My way. Feels like old times already.
Old times.
So that's a good example of what our real-time in-game cinematics will look like. We have quite a few within the game, and now we're in the Marsara Bar, and within these spaces, this is where you're going to be able to choose what missions you want to go on. You're going to be able to get information about the StarCraft universe and kind of see just kind of other cool little items within each space. We really want each of these spaces to be as interactive as possible. So you can spend as much time in these areas or as little. Like if you want to just kind of skip through and go straight to missions, you can do that. If you kind of want to play around in the area, you can kind of do that at your leisure. So we have some different areas that you can click on. Like for example, we got a jukebox over here, which turns off the music and turns it back on. We're hoping as we get further along, we'll be able to actually add several different tunes that you can kind of choose from. We also have this cool little bulletin board area here, which as you progress in missions, you'll actually see different kind of postings that go up there, and you can kind of click on each one and kind of hear what Rainer has to say about them.
I'm pretty bad.
Yeah, are you guys hearing that okay? I didn't hear that sound real well. Yeah, okay. Just checking. Making sure that everyone's hearing this, because he's actually saying stuff.
The old heavens devils.
Yeah.
We sure raised hell, all right.
Yay, sounds much better. All right, so as you kind of go through, we'll kind of have different kind of fun things in the multiplayer. You can see that might even have something to do with kind of the different actions you take in the campaign. And
yeah, I'm up from filming, dude.
In space, so you'll be able to
Call me curious, but how'd you get out?
I made it. I'm filming, so I gotta go.
I busted out of my cryo freezer while they were transporting me to New Folsom. Oh, I must have killed at least a dozen guards with my bare hands.
Yeah, I've heard this one before. But you left out the part where you walked on water and made off with the warden's daughter.
Don't you get uppity with me, boy. I heard all about you becoming a big-time freedom fighter while I was away. What happened, Jimmy? The war for truth and justice getting too much for you.
I ain't licked yet, Tychus. And I promise you, Minsk is going down one way or another. Meantime, just remember you need me one hell of a lot more than I need you.
You ain't changed a bit.
So the idea of a lot of the different character interactions is really for you to be able to kind of learn more about the characters, learn more about Rainer and his motivations, sometimes even learn more about upcoming missions. And so now I'm going to, rather than just concentrate in this area, I'm going to start using cheats to kind of skip a little bit around. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to skip this next mission. What you normally would have done at this point is go in and actually play a specific mission where you actually get the artifact from the Dominion. So I'm going to skip that mission. You'll see kind of what would have happened after the mission was completed.
So who's your mysterious buyer, Tychus? Who are we supposed to hand this artifact over to?
As soon as your boy Mance made it illegal to trade in alien goods, they got desperate. You know me, Jimmy. I am a great patron of the sciences.
Alright, so this is now kind of after that particular mission, so there'll be different things in the story space that may have changed. Like, for example, we can now click on the TV and get kind of a
Recent reports of growing unrest on Marsara took a dangerous new turn today. Kate Lockwood was on the scene.
Just hours ago, insurgents raided this Dominion facility. The Dominion Security Control has informed us that the base was neutralizing dangerous bioweapons left over from the last war. Strictly as a precautionary measure, martial law has been declared as the hunt for the missing weapons begins. This is Kate Lockwell for UNN reporting from Marsara.
So in between each mission, you'll actually be able to go to the TV and kind of get different style of news reports. So even though the news report there kind of features those particular characters, we actually have a variety of different characters that would do different styles of newscasts in between each mission, depending on the missions that you chose. So now we're actually going to go into a mission, or I should say, so since this is early in the campaign, this is actually the third mission in the game. We haven't yet started giving you the ability to choose which mission you go into. So, kind of these first few missions, we just want to get people used to the story mode space, get used to how to play the game, and then soon afterwards, you'll actually kind of get the galaxy will open up to you and choices will open up. We're going to go ahead and launch this mission so you can see the mission briefing.
I've got transport coming to pick us up. All we gotta do is sit tight.
Don't sound too hard. I figure we earned ourselves a little R&R.
Commander, I'm detecting a massive concentration of Zerg biosignatures landing at the abandoned dig site. Given their current course, the Zerg will overrun this location within the hour.
I swear, man, I didn't know nothing about no Zerg.
Hell, we gotta hold out long enough for extraction. If we man the bunkers and hold those two bridges as long as we can, we just might stand a chance. We're gonna have a real fight on our hands here.
I've been in plenty of holdouts before.
Not against the Zerg, you haven't.
So this is the third mission in the campaign, so you can see that actually, we're not just making an adventure game this time out. We still have the missions themselves. I just kind of was concentrating a lot of this presentation on showing the newer stuff, since the missions themselves, you'll see, are kind of just very good StarCraft missions. This mission itself is a holdout mission, so you can kind of see the timer up here. You have to hold out for 20 minutes. If you kind of look around the map, you'll see that the Zerg is actually starting to invade. And we're not going to play this entire mission, but as the mission progresses, this creep will actually get closer and closer. The civilian areas are going to get taken over, and you're going to get increased waves to actually come off the base. So kind of the new thing in this mission for the player, and I know for all you guys that play StarCraft a ton, it seems pretty simple, but really teach players how to. So as this mission goes on, there'll be lots and lots of Zerg units are going to come across these bridges and make life difficult, along with some of the air units will be coming across. And really what the player's got to learn is how to use bunkers, how to repair them. There's the Zerg now.
Here they go, lock and load.
So obviously the first few waves are going to be pretty easy as long as the player learns to put their units in the bunker. But rather than kind of use the whole panel up with me actually playing the mission, and I'm going to skip ahead to the end of the mission so you can kind of get an idea of how hairy it actually gets at the end.
Enter, this is Matt Warner. Just hold on. Cavalry's on the way. Take your time, Matt. No rush. Cavalry's arrived. Anyone still alive down there? Good to see you, Matt. Welcome to the party. Glad we made it in time, sir. Now let's get you boys out of there.
Damn, Jimmy. You've been holding out on me.
Cutting it pretty close there, Matt. Never left you hanging before, sir. Fair enough. Just get us the hell out of here. All batteries, concentrate forward firepower. Spin up drives 2 and 6. All hands brace for warp jump on my mark. Mark. What the hell happened? We ain't seen the Zerg in years. Why attack Marsara now? It's not just Marsara. You need to see this.
Zerg swarm launched full-scale attacks ready to go out of all outer rim planets. Casualties in the billions.
Minutes ago, the Zerg attacked a Dominion military research facility. New exclusive video footage confirms the cleanup plane is in fact being scrapped.
We always knew she'd be back, but what's she after? She's come to finish the job.
Really, the game really opens up to the player. You know, before this, you know, we're kind of in this bar area, you know, kind of doing the introductory missions, but, you know, at this point you learn that Raynor is not quite as far down on his luck as you're led to believe in the beginning of the game. And this is really where the game opens up. So you're going to have a lot of different places you can go. Like some of the different areas that we have at this point is we can go to a cantina space, we can go to an armory. So I'm just going to kind of briefly show you some of the different areas of the battle cruiser you can go to. And this isn't even all the spaces too. These are just kind of the ones that we're showing you here at Blizzcon. But we got to save something, you know, keep something back for the actual game itself. So the canteen is an area where you're going to see lots of new characters will come in. It's an area where you know, it's kind of the space where, you know, it's a lot like the bar space. You can talk to other characters that come into the game, and you're going to be able to go up to the video screen and get your news reports like you would have. The jukebox has been bolted up to the top since they couldn't leave the bar without it. You had to bring it onto the spaceship. And here's one of the new characters. This is Gabriel Hawk. He's a very mysterious character that, you know, Raynor will take up with him.
See the Queen of Blades out at work again.
universe. He's the first officer to Raynor, and he's kind of the guy that oftentimes will be really telling you what's going on with the ship, what's going on with kind of the missions. He's really, again, Jim's kind of second in command. So.
Zerg attacks are being reported all over the sector, but the biggest push is against the Dominion core worlds.
How's that bastard Mengsk responding?
He's pulled the fleet back to protect his main resource centers, leaving the fringe worlds to fend for themselves. He's a real man of the people.
Alright, now I'm going to take you to a lot of these different objects currently aren't working entirely, or they're works in progress, so I've been clicking a lot of different consoles, but a lot of the different places you see, whenever you kind of see this little gear cursor, you can actually click on, like, even kind of fun stuff like kind of the outer window, just kind of get cool views of the universe, see the cool red planet there, like, as you go through to the different areas, you'll see different backgrounds, in front of the bridge. But the most important area in probably all the different spaces is actually the star map, because this is where you choose the missions.
A distress call from the planet Agria. There's a colony there under attack by the Zerg. Your convict buddy Tychus lined up a mission retrieving another artifact. It's on a world called Monolith, but you'd best ask him for the details.
So this is a very early version of the star map. We're still working on it, but you can kind of see here's two of the different missions that you can currently select. And since we're still early in the campaign, you only have two choices. But depending on which missions you choose and in which order, you might see up to like 5 or 6 different planets open up simultaneously. It's really up to you as a player to decide how you kind of want to progress through the campaign. And you can click on each of these and kind of get a little mini briefing on what the mission's about.
Boys think there's an artifact on some world called Monolith. Supposedly there's Protoss government fanatics that stayed on after the rest of them ducked out. Don't get all sentimental thinking these Protoss are buddies of yours, because they ain't.
You'll see like a lot of the different missions are kind of aligned with characters like this. So this particular mission, you're kind of getting the briefing from Tychus because he's the one that's really bringing the mission to the table. But when we click on this other planet, you'll see a brand new character.
Any ship receiving this transmission, the Zerg are invading Agria. The Dominion has abandoned us here. We're just a small farming colony. We've got to evacuate before we're overrun. If you can hear this message, please help us.
So if we actually launch this mission and complete it, this would be a new character that would come onto the starship and now give us future missions. So, but that's all for now. So that is the gameplay demo, but I'm actually not done. Alright, so that kind of gives you an idea, a sense of the scope of the game. We've really added a ton. We've added a lot of missions, a lot of types, we've added all the characters, in-game cinematics, all these different kind of interactive objects to really immerse you in the world. And we really have, taken the idea of allowing you to get as involved in the story as you want to. But there were some challenges with this approach. The stories themselves are huge. We really want to immerse you in the universe. We really want to introduce a lot of characters to you, but that meant that the stories kept on getting bigger and bigger. We're oftentimes kind of, we really can't help ourselves from making these mammoth epic undertakings on our stories. So the next problem that we kind of learned was that the story mode itself demands 3 to 4 times as much as kind of our previous games. We have all these in-game cinematics, we have all this new technology we have to develop, we really have to figure out how to integrate it with the missions themselves. So that was kind of another big challenge. And to give you some examples of that, like alternate missions. This is kind of an example of StarCraft 2 mission flow. Now, all of you that are taking pictures, those are not the actual mission names. And we decided to go ahead and hide those and kind of do a different flow. But it kind of gives you an idea of what it's like to lay out a branching campaign. To have a campaign like this where, depending on which branches you take and how far you go down, it really means that we have to add a lot more missions to each campaign to really Another example is the use of in-game cinematics. The more that we developed our in-game cinematic technology and, really seeing how cool they came out, we really felt like there's a certain amount that we had to do to really deliver the stories at the scale that we want to deliver. And, of course, lots of characters means lots of development. We really want to support each character with missions of their own. We really want to make sure that they have lots of dialogue and character arcs, and we really want to layer that story in there, which is, again, very different than, let's say, a game like Warcraft 3, where we keep you on that linear path, and we introduce characters and take them away whenever we want as developers, and now we're really putting that more into the player's hands, so we really got to account for all those different possibilities. So, what should we do is what we started asking ourselves. Well, we came up with 3 options. Option A, we decided, was we could simplify the campaign, which is to kind of make the game much more linear, have less choice and less characters. Really, in a lot of ways, going back to what we did with Warcraft 3, but maybe adding some of the in-game cinematics, and but really just kind of doing a little evolutionary leap. This is kind of the option which I call, surrendering the white flag and giving up. So option B is make each campaign really epic, but release them each as a separate product. So with this one, the idea was, let's just make it big. Let's make this thing totally huge. Make each campaign stand on its own. Not really make the campaigns have to rely on each other. Introduce tons of new characters. Make the universe really huge. This is the option which I kind of like to refer to as the go big or go home option. And then our last option is the compromise the middle but delay the game greatly. So this is, the option that we kind of do a little bit of everything, not quite make it as big as we could, but try to deliver, kind of somewhere in the middle, but it would have meant, delaying the game quite a bit. So this is, the option which is not really make anyone happy or anyone sad option. So, we had to decide. So this could backfire on me greatly, but, I'm going to go ahead and try it anyways. So how many of you guys want option A? How many of you guys want option B? Option C? Well, I'm here to announce the SC2 Trilogy. Which is going to be released is going to be the Terran campaign called Wings of Liberty. Yes. So this campaign is going to be, very much, centered on what I was showing you in the demo. So it's going to be about Jim Raynor. It's going to be about him as a freedom fighter, his fighting against Dominion, and most importantly, really trying to resolve his relationship with Kerrigan, the Queen of Blades. The second product we're going to release is centered on the Zerg, Heart of the Swarm. So as you can see from the picture, this campaign has everything to do with Kerrigan. And I'm sure you all can guess at this point what the third one is going to be. Legacy of the Void, with Zeratul as your main character. All right, so what does all this mean? First of all, I just want to assure you that nothing changes for multiplayer. We're still doing all 3 races completely developed for multiplayer and skirmish mode. So, we're just as devoted as ever, making sure that each of the races are completely different, completely balanced with another, have, pretty much the same amount of units and strategies. So nothing changes for multiplayer. All the changes are only just kind of for the story mode and for the single player game itself. So each campaign should feel like an epic story. We don't want a cliffhanger in each one, so that really allowed us to make each campaign really epic. So we really want to make sure that there's a beginning, middle, and end. Even though there's going to be, all the major characters will show up in all 3 campaigns, but we really want to devote ourselves to each campaign having a character arc that deals with you as the main character. So in the Terran campaign, that's going to be Jim Raynor. So we really want to make sure that at the end of Wings of Liberty, we really deliver a great ending. It's it's not one of these kind of lost episodes that just cliffhangs and come back next week. We really want to make you feel like it really is a full product in and of itself. All right, so the really good news about this, which is going to kind of be the next part of my presentation, is that since we made this decision, it meant that a lot of the things we were doing to kind of try to spread out all the content, we can now just focus into each product. So it really meant that previously, we're trying to kind of go more of that option C, which meant kind of less missions for each campaign, less cinematics, things like that. And now that we made this choice, it really allows us to concentrate on each product and make it huge and epic and awesome. So, as an example, like we take the story content, it means we can add more sets. Like that Marsar Abari that we showed you, that was a set that probably wouldn't have happened if we wouldn't have made this decision. And we also have a lot of other extra sets to sort of plan, so as you progress through the campaign, you kind of always have different fresh locations to go to. It also meant more characters. So, we really were able to add more characters that had missions available to them and, really adds more to the universe. More props, extras like the TV, the jukebox, it really allowed us to make sure that each space had lots of interactivity and lots of things to click on, add more to the experience. And of course, missions, more branching missions, and we were also able to start adding some Easter egg missions, and really kind of flesh out that campaign. All right, so let you know a little bit. So really all the branching and all the player choice happens kind of in the middle of the campaign. There definitely is a set introduction and there's a set ending. It's really up to you how you kind of progress to it. Which characters that you're going to kind of align with and explore their stories, which characters you're not. There's definitely some different choices, kind of also just from branching and alternate missions that you're going to be able to decide. But ultimately everyone's going to end up with the same end cinematic. And each campaign is approximately like 26 to 30 missions or so if you had done every single one. So you can kind of see that even though we made the decision to do the trilogy, we're treating each campaign as a fully fleshed out game. And you look previously like at Warcraft 3 or the previous StarCraft, each campaign was maybe like 10 to 12 missions. Okay, so we're also able to add more movies. So we're able to add not only more in-game movies, but also more pre-rendered cinematics, which I'm sure will excite everybody, including myself. So the example of the pre-rendered movie that we're adding is a movie about Sarah Kerrigan and her origins. So it's a cinematic that normally I wouldn't show people because I don't like to give away stuff in the story, but it's a really cool cinematic because the way that it comes online within the game itself, it's kind of a flashback. So for all the fans of, or for all the new players of the StarCraft universe, it kind of catches them up on Sarah Kerrigan's origins in a really cool way. We actually had a mission in the first StarCraft where Kerrigan got left behind by Arcturus Minx, and it was a very dramatic moment within it, but we were never able to really show it cinematically. The only thing we had available to us was just kind of voiceover in the mission itself. So we decided that'd be a really awesome moment to do a full-blown pre-rendered cinematic. So we don't have it done today, so I can't show it to you. However, what I thought would be really cool to show you guys behind the scenes of our process of how we develop these cinematics. So one of the first things that we do when we develop a cinematic is we do a storyboard animatic, where we kind of do these pencil drawing storyboards, and we lay it down to voiceover, temporary voiceover, and to music, just to kind of get a sense of how this pre-rendered cinematic will play out. And then a bunch of us sit in a room, and we kind of argue back and forth, and we iterate on it a lot, because at the storyboard stage, it's much easier to change things than it is once we've actually made fully 3D realized models. So what I'm going to show you today is actually the completed version of that storyboard animatic before it goes into cinematic production. So I'm going to go ahead and show you guys that. Hold on. Wait for it. All right. Behind the scenes things. All right. So roll the first movie.
We've neutralized the Protoss, but there's a wave of Zerg advancing on this position. We need immediate evac.
So you just have to imagine now that storyboard cinematic at the level of the Lich King intro cinematic and what our guys in Blizzard Phone are going to be able to do with that. So I think it's going to be pretty amazing what's still done. All right, but there's more. Okay, so I'm going to talk just a little bit about, again, what this choice allowed us to do is in the future campaigns, it also allowed us to approach things pretty differently, since we're going to treat them again as separate products. So within the Terran campaign, you're kind of like a mercenary leader, you're taking jobs for money, you're buying technology, so that's kind of how the mechanics work within that one. But when you go to the next campaign, it's going to be really different. During the Zerg campaign, it's going to have a lot more to do with Kerrigan and making her powerful. It kind of has more of an RPG sort of feel to it. And in Legacy of the Void, there's going to be a lot more kind of diplomacy sort of gameplay. So, kind of those meta game mechanics are going to be completely different within each campaign. So I already went ahead and skipped ahead of my PowerPoint, so I'm going to move on past that. Okay, so another thing that we added was even though you're primarily playing the Terran campaign, we did want to add the ability to play at least one of the races a little bit. So we're adding like a Protoss mini campaign from within, the Terran campaign product. So there's a kind of the storyline that weaves through all of them that has to do with Zeratul and the Protoss. So there's going to be like just a few missions where you play as Zeratul and, kind of learn more about the greater threat. Because even though each of the products deal, almost entirely with the main character and deal with that race, there is something that kind of arcs through all three. There is kind of a greater threat and a reason why a lot of things that are happening in each campaign happen. So we're kind of telling that through Zeratul and his campaign. So, and this is, again, just kind of a good way to allow the players, even though, just kind of mix things up a little bit, because even though we have lots of great campaign gimmicks and lots of units that you might not even have seen during multiplayer for the Terrans, we still want to have you get kind of a taste of one of the other races. So, you'll kind of have that ability. And that's it. I'm just kidding. There's actually one more thing. This is just my greedy way of getting an extra applause out of you all. So the other thing that I'm going to show you, which is the coolest thing of this entire panel, and I hope no one left early, because we decided that we're going to show you a pre-rendered cinematic that no one has ever seen before in the world. This is, again, just kind of my way of, rather than putting the opening ceremonies where Mike gets all the credit, I get to kind of beef up my panel by introducing cool cinematic footage. So just want to thank the cinematic department for letting me do this. And the cinematic I'm going to show you is actually just a 1 minute portion of it. It's actually a cinematic about 4 minutes long, so I'm only going to show you 1 minute from that 4 minute cinematic. And it's part of the actual, I wanted to show you at least some Zeratul stuff also in the game. So you guys ready? All right, let's roll the movie.
The Zerg swarm came as was foretold. And the Protoss
side.
Before, perhaps you just switched more towards limiting how many people you could have in your army and focusing on heroes. And I keep hearing you're going to do that with StarCraft because I really like having huge armies and crushing other people. So I'm kind of hoping to hear something on whether or not you plan to do that with StarCraft as well.
So one of the things that we did when we created Warcraft 3 and we started talking about adding hero gameplay to that game, we did it consciously knowing that we wanted to start separating the game mechanics into two franchises. So, we really wanted to make Warcraft feel more of a kind of a growing RPG sort of franchise. And we knew even then that when we came back one day to StarCraft, that was a massive army, fast action sort of game. So StarCraft 2, we consciously decided not to do heroes and not to limit an army. And it wasn't because we didn't like those mechanics. Those are great for Warcraft. And if we ever went back into Warcraft 4, there's a good chance that, that would be much more of a kind of a hero, smaller unit sort of game. StarCraft, it's science fiction, it's going to be mass armies. I mean, can you imagine the Zerg with just small numbers of units? Yeah, so it's all about lots of units, fast action.
How you doing? Is the trilogy going to be a single release? And if it is, what's the pricing plan? If you've got something decided about that, or is it going to be a staggered release?
They're separate products. So the first one, StarCraft 2, Wings of Liberty will be the first product. And then in some ways you can look at the next two almost like you would expansion sets, but we really want them to feel like standalone products.
Hi, you talked a lot about giving the players more choice in how they approach their campaign experience. How are you going to make those choices matter?
Well, the biggest way is through, like I was saying, through the missions that you choose and through the technology. So what you'll be able to see, and I don't want to give too much away, I'm really trying to give you more of a sense of it, but depending on the characters that you kind of ally with and which missions you take, you will get choices, kind of within the story itself of how things kind of progress kind of during that middle part. And of course, the types of missions you choose are going to affect how much money you get, which affects kind of which technology you're going to choose and how you play future missions.
For the multiplayer campaign, after the first and the second and the third ones come out, will you be able to continue to play on the multiplayer if you have just the first one with everybody else, things like that?
Yeah, so the multiplayer, you almost want to think of it separate from kind of a lot of this discussion. You can think of that a little bit more like StarCraft 1, where the game comes out, even though the campaign is going to be entirely turn-focused, each of the armies are going to be fully represented in multiplayer. And in the future products, we haven't made any decisions yet what we're going to do for multiplayer in the future products, but, we'll kind of make that determination down the line.
Hi, you guys said that each of the products will be completely separate. You want it to feel like it's standalone. Will each of them happen in sequence, or will it be more of occurring at the same time, each of the separate products?
They'll come in sequence in the order that I showed. So, the initial ship date, you'll get the campaign with Terrans, and then some undetermined time in the future we'll ship the Zerg, and then after that we'll do the Protoss as the last product.
I meant as the storyline as far as, do they go in order, or?
Yes. Yeah, the story goes in order. Even though we want to make each one, kind of feel separate, the Zerg campaign certainly chronologically takes place after the events of the Terran campaign.
Each of them really has their own ending. They definitely have their own vibe, start to finish, but they are consecutive.
All right, this is going to be a last question.
Yes, coming in.
You said that the Zeratul campaign will have to do with the overall threat, and I'm wondering if that's going to follow through all three games of the trilogy, if they'll all have their own Zeratul mini-campaign.
We haven't decided what we're going to do yet in the Zerg campaign as it pertains to whether or not we do a Protoss mini-campaign or not. We haven't decided yet. It's possible, but I think they're also, kind of that greater threat will be kind of continue to amplify each of the campaigns until it finally resolves. So I don't know if you want to speak more about that, Chris. Give me another opportunity. Do you want to talk to us? It's all good. Bring it. Say something.
Who they know? We out of time?
Are we out of time?
It's we're out of time. That's all the time we
us for the StarCraft panel we have in a half an hour from now. Upstairs, room 204, we have the StarCraft art panel.
And guys, we have a war panel tomorrow. I think it's at 2 o'clock, 3 o'clock. But Andy Chambers and I have a war panel tomorrow, so we'll kind of get into a